The inside the deserted mountain that had turned into a ruin, a huge formation, was revealed as the fog dissipated. A figure was sitting at the center of the 10-colored formation, and Wang Lin could now see the appearance of the figure. It was an old man, and he looked very similar to the All-Seer. However, when Wang Lin took a closer look, not only was this person similar to All-Seer, but was also similar to another person. "Wang Lin, we meet again." The old man smiled as if he was very calm as he looked at Wang Lin. His smile was elusive. It seemed to contain greed and some reminiscence, but in the depths of his eyes, there was a hidden trace of fear. Wang Lin's body was 7,000 to 8,000 feet tall. Staring at the old man, he said, "Should I call you All-Seer or Seven-Colored Celestial Sovereign?" This person's appearance was like an overlap of the All-Seer and the Seven-Colored Celestial Sovereign. "I have a lot of names, but even now I like to be called All-Seer." The old man smiled and he pressed his right hand down on the formation. The giant formation activated once more, emitting a strange light. This light shrouded the world and attracted the power of the world. It created a shockwave, and even Wang Lin's body was forced back several steps. "Transfer!" Wang Lin's eyes lit up. With his understanding of restrictions, he could instantly tell that the formation below the All-Seer was a transfer array. Unfortunately, Haven T killed enough. The old man let out a sigh. Wang Lin didn't make any sound. He had many doubts, but he didn't say anything. He raised his right hand and smashed down on the formation. Wang Lin's powerful body and strong fist smashed into the formation, but he immediately felt a powerful rebound force. Popping sounds came from his body, and his right hand was knocked back. He looked over to find that the formation wasn't damaged at all. "You can break this formation. You can stop this old man's plan." "I had waited for too long for this day." The old man shook his head and looked at Wang Lin. His eyes revealed a strange gaze. It contained a complicated emotion, greed and fear. Wang Lin had seen this kind of gaze on the All-Seer before, but it had never been so clear before. This was related to the fact that his cultivation had reached Grand Empyrean level. The All-Seer is already dead, and the Seven-Colored Celestial Sovereign is gone. "Who are you?" Wang Lin roared, and his body expanded once more. He was now a giant over 10,000 feet tall. His roar was like a gust of wind, and his right foot smashed down on the formation below. Thunderous rumbles echoed, but when Wang Lin's right foot touched the formation, his foot trembled and the powerful rebound force knocked him back again. "Who am I?" The old man silently pondered for a moment, and laughed. "Who am I? Aside from myself, there is only one other person that knows. And you will know soon enough." The formation around the old man shined brightly and began to buzz. As the formation activated, the earth began to shake as well. What kind of transfer array is this that can shake the earth? There was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. It didn't matter if this person was the All-Seer or the Seven-Colored Celestial Sovereign. He was the ancient Tao Imperial teacher that was responsible for taking Wan Er's soul fragment. He was someone Wang Lin was going to kill. Seeing the formation become even more intense, Wang Lin took a deep breath and rumbles came from his body. The blue blood vessels on his body and face swelled, making him look extremely fierce. He let out a roar and his body expanded once more. He became tens of thousands of feet tall and reached almost 100,000 feet. Such a large body caused the world to change colors. The formation below was like an ant to him. Wang Lin's eyes revealed endless silver light as he threw another punch at the formation. As this punch fell, the power of the world within 5 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 50,000 kilometers, even over hundreds of thousands of kilometers was all pulled in. It was as if Wang Lin's punch had turned into a black hole that devoured all the power and smashed down on the world. The old man inside the formation looked up at this with a strange expression and didn't panic at all. When the punch landed, the light from the formation flashed violently and suddenly shattered. Then the punch closed in on the old man. In the blink of an eye, the punch touched the old man's body, but it penetrated his body, penetrated the formation, and landed on the ground. The earth trembled violently and waves spread out in all directions. The mountain burst open and a giant hole appeared. However, Wang Lin's expression became gloomy because the old man and the formation were still there without any damage. It was as if this old man and the formation didn't exist and everything was just an illusion. The old man and the formation seemed to exist in a completely different space from Wang Lin. Why waste your energy? The old man smiled as he shook his head and sighed. Wang Lin silently pondered for a moment and said, "After this long you still haven't transferred away." This not just a transfer array. When his words entered the old man's ears, the old man's eyes lit up. Wang Lin closed his eyes and his body shrank and the giant figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Instead, a normal-sized white-robed Wang Lin appeared. Because he had shrunk too fast, the giant figure seemed to dissipate like an illusion. After returning to his normal size, he stepped forward and arrived before the formation. He looked at the old man that looked like both the Ulcer and the seven-colored celestial sovereign. He waved his right hand, and the five-element true body and the slaughter thunder essence true body returned to his body. The old man slowly said, "This formation is indeed not just a transfer array. Its real effect is to open an ancient gate. Unfortunately, your slaughter is not powerful enough. You can break this formation, and can stop the activation of this formation. It's better to sit down and talk for a short period of time. This old man can perhaps solve some of your doubts for you." The old man smiled as he looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin silently pondered and shook his head. After a moment, he stepped forward and a giant sun appeared behind him. This sun was black and white and emitted black and white light. It looked very strange in this world. "I'm not used to talking to someone through a formation," Wang Lin calmly said. Then he walked toward the edge of the formation. Ripples echoed as Wang Lin walked inside. Although he had walked through the formation, it was as if he was standing in a different space from the formation. The old man looked at Wang Lin, who was only a few hundred feet away, and revealed a pitiful look. However, in the next breath, the old man's pupils violently shrank. As Wang Lin stood there, his cultivation level continued to rise. The Grand Empyrean sun behind him shined brightly and expanded to more than 10 times the previous size in the blink of an eye. The giant Grand Empyrean sun gave off even more light, but it didn't stop expanding. From a distance, it was like a ball being blown larger and larger. "What are you going to do?" The old man's expression became gloomy as he stared at the Grand Empyrean sun. Without hesitation, he raised his right hand. The giant fly circling him started buzzing loudly. It revealed a ferocious gaze and charged at Wang Lin. But when the fly came within a few dozen feet of Wang Lin, it could not get any closer. It was as if there was an invisible barrier stopping it from getting closer. Thunderous rumbles echoed. This sound came from the fly smashing into the invisible barrier due to anger. Wang Lin's right hand reached into the void before him and a soul appeared. It was the soul of the Celestial Emperor. Holding this soul, Wang Lin closed his eyes and his cultivation level continued to rise. When his cultivation raised to speak void tribulent, it continued to increase. He poured all his power into the soul, causing the Celestial Emperor's soul's eyes to open and release dazzling golden light. However, these eyes contained no consciousness and were filled with confusion. Wang Lin waved his right hand and threw the soul into the Grand Empyrean sun behind him. There was a blurry head hidden inside the giant Grand Empyrean sun. This was the celestial ancestor's head that Wang Lin had taken out back at the ancient Dao Palace and then put back into the Grand Empyrean sun. The moment the Celestial Emperor's soul entered the Grand Empyrean sun and the celestial ancestor's head, the Grand Empyrean sun expanded once more to 100 times its original size. Wang Lin's body trembled, and he let out a roar. The Grand Empyrean sun expanded several more folds before his eyes suddenly opened. "Ignite, Grand Empyrean sun!" The Grand Empyrean sun began to burn. From a distance, it looked like a giant black and white fireball, and a sea of fire surged through the sky. The old man's expression changed. Then he suddenly stood up and roared, "Dante, you want to truly resurrect Limu Wan?" The like button for the VIDEO has dropped to 5th place. Tears brimming and wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, but he didn't speak or stop his crazed actions. He had made the Celestial Emperor's soul fuse with the Celestial Ancestor's head to make it melt a bit faster. He had fused them with his Grand Empyrean sun to borrow a powerful force. At this moment, as the Grand Empyrean sun burned, the giant sun shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it shrank from its vast size until it disappeared. At the same time, the powerful force entered Wang Lin's body in a strange way. Then his right foot stomped down. When he stomped down, Wang Lin let out a roar and a thunderous boom echoed around him. If this formation was located in a space different from that of the immortal astral continent, all of Wang Lin's previous attacks had been useless. It was as if the formation was intangible. He could see it, but not touch it. The formation was here so it could absorb the death aura from the palace. This meant that even though it was in a different space, the spaces overlapped here. Wang Lin had seen his kind of spell before. Back in the Celestial Palace, he had encountered something similar. At this moment, he was burning his Grand Empyrean Sun in exchange for the power to break open the void. He was going to use his powerful body and cultivation to break open the barrier to enter that space. This spell was similar to stepping out of the cave world and directly entering the immortal astral continent. This spell would be like crossing the boundary between worlds, which would even be difficult for Grand Empyreans, unless it was like the Celestial Palace, where an entrance had been created. However, Wang Lin was trying to force his way in now, and it was extremely difficult. The ancient Tao Imperial Teacher's expression had changed because of Wang Lin's crazed actions. Wang Lin's right foot rose, and when it landed, thunderous rumbles echoed. The formation flashed violently and a large invisible net seemed to appear. The net bent, and if Wang Lin could break it, he could cross the boundary. The flickering net could only vaguely be seen by the eye. When Wang Lin's right foot landed on the net, it seemed to be reaching a limit. Wang Lin's body also trembled and sweat appeared on his forehead. Although he had obtained great strength, this was extremely difficult for him. All of this happened in an instant. The ancient Tao Imperial Teacher stood up and his hands formed seals. 10 colored lights shot toward the net under Wang Lin's foot. It made the net stronger and more resilient, and now the net seemed to contain an elastic force that was going to lift Wang Lin's feet. Before Wang Lin, the giant fly seemed to have gone crazy and continued to smash into the barrier. It wanted to tear open the barrier and charge at Wang Lin. After reinforcing the net, the ancient Tao Imperial Teacher bit the tip of his tongue and coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, the blood didn't fall on the net, but went through the formation into the unknown. But at this moment, the activation of the formation increased several folds. The sound of murmuring seemed to increase, as if countless people were speaking, but you couldn't hear anything clearly. With my blood to lead the soul of the heavens, activate! As the old man roared, countless souls appeared inside the formation. When Wang Lin saw these souls, his body trembled. These souls belonged to people who had died to Wang Lin in the cave world. These souls turned into black gas and charged out from the formation. They flew into the sky and formed a giant vortex, then an illusion appeared inside the vortex. The illusion was like an image, and it reflected the Celestial Clan. On the immortal astral continent, at the Mountain Sea continent, a few scattered cultivators stared at the sea dumbfoundedly. The sea level seemed to drop, then a large black pillar suddenly rose from the bottom of the sea. It flew into the sky and disappeared. Wang Lin saw the scene inside the vortex. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt his hair stand up, as if something that would shock the entire immortal astral continent had appeared. He took a deep breath, and without hesitation, his right foot stomped down in an attempt to break the looming net and enter the space the formation was in. However, the net was reinforced and erupted with endless power, preventing Wang Lin from breaking it open. As a result, thunderous rumbles echoed when Wang Lin stomped at the net. The ancient Tao Imperial Teacher coughed out 3 mouthfuls of blood and attracted even more death souls. These death souls were all people Wang Lin had killed. They revealed painful expressions as they let out roars and turned into black gas that flew into the sky. They turned into 3 giant vortexes that lined up with the other vortex. A different image appeared in each vortex. Cloud Wave Continent. There was a giant ocean on this continent, and normally there weren't many waves. There were many small islands on this ocean, and there were many cultivators on them. The calm sea suddenly rumbled and countless islands were flooded. Large amounts of cultivators flew out and were shocked by this. The ocean's level seemed to drop, and then a giant pillar flew into the sky and disappeared. The other 2 places were oceans in the Celestial Clan, and huge pillars flew out of them and into the sky. The last place could not even be called an ocean. It was the frozen land where Grand Empyrean Wu Feng was. The ice suddenly burst open, revealing the frozen ocean below, and a huge pillar pierced through the ice and flew into the sky. Wu Feng stood in the distance and looked at this. This pillar gave off an ancient aura, as if it had existed for countless years. A large amount of pressure also spread out, shaking the world. "It's ahead of time," Wufeng muttered, but soon his eyes shined brightly. Wang Lin clearly saw all of this in the vortex in the sky. Seeing that the ancient Tao imperial teacher was about to cough out the fifth mouthful of blood, Wang Lin didn't hesitate to summon his strongest avatar in the void. A hazy fog appeared around him, and his power suddenly erupted. His right foot contained his full power as he stomped down on the net. When he stomped down, an overlapping shadow appeared over his original body, as if there was another body there. This was his avatar in the void. With one stomp, a part of the net collapsed, creating a hole. When Wang Lin's foot landed, he stepped inside the space the formation was in. His body was still here, but his right foot had landed in that space. This was his limit. He could not make his entire body into that space, but just his right foot could achieve his goal. There was a flash of black light on his foot, and then he withdrew it. Then a large amount of black gas drilled into the hole as the net recovered. In the space where the formation was, the black gas gathered at the edge of the formation to form a black-haired Wang Lin. His eyes were cold and indifferent, devoid of all emotion. This was Wang Lin's Slaughter Thunder Essence true body. Its name, Slaughter. The person who said the name of this true body was the ancient Tao imperial teacher. As the old man stared at the black-haired true body, there was a flash of fear in his eyes. "I'm not used to talking to someone across space. I like talking to people face to face like this," the black-haired Slaughter Thunder Essence true body said as he looked around. This was a very strange space. It seemed infinite in size, but also seemed like it was only so large. It gave people a strange illusion. There were also murmurs constantly echoing, as if there were countless people talking, but you couldn't clearly hear a single sentence. Slaughter withdrew his gaze and walked toward the ancient Tao imperial teacher. Outside the formation, Wang Lin's original body sat down with his eyes closed. His full focus was on the Slaughter true body in the other space. "You seem to be very afraid of me, and you know the name of this true body of mine." The black-haired Slaughter looked at the old man and the formation coldly. He waved his hand and countless strands of black gas appeared to destroy this formation. "If you destroy this formation, there is no chance for Li Muan to awaken. That soul fragment is only a soul fragment. Even if you put it into the heaven-avoiding coffin, it can awaken her. The only way to resurrect the dead is to rely on this formation. Even if you rely on the power of the ancient ancestor's soul blood to temporarily awaken her, she can escape reincarnation. A few years later, she would turn back into a corpse. If you want her to escape reincarnation, you have to rely on this formation," the ancient Tao imperial teacher suddenly said. Slaughter's right hand paused for a moment. Outside the formation, Wang Lin opened his eyes. "What place is this formation opening?" The ancient Tao imperial teacher, who looked like the Alzar and the seven-colored celestial sovereign, pondered a bit and said, "The immemorial God realm. If you want to allow Li Muan to break out from reincarnation and not suffer the pain of reincarnation, you must go the immemorial God realm. There, you are sheltered from reincarnation, and you can use your reincarnation Tao to break Li Muan's dream barrier, find her true self, and surpass reincarnation. The immemorial God realm has only been partially opened in the past, but with my method, I can open it completely." However, there was a flash of killing intent in Slaughter's eyes. After his right hand paused, it moved once more as if he was going to destroy the formation. "Forgot to mention, at the end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video." The ancient Tao imperial teacher's voice was fierce as he roared. "If this formation is destroyed, you will never know the truth about the cave world and the immortal astral continent. You will still have to watch Li Muan's soul die and return to the reincarnation cycle. You still want to allow her to accompany you forever." The eyes of the black-haired Slaughter avatar lit up, and his right hand stopped. The black gas still moved along his hand, and it was a shocking sight. "You have the celestial ancestor's soul blood, and it has the power of creation. But even if you integrate the entire drop into Li Muan's body, it won't allow her to safely enter the immemorial God realm. The immemorial God realm is the supreme holy land of the immortal astral continent. Ordinary cultivators can enter it. They either need powerful cultivation or a powerful body. This time, the immemorial God realm will open completely. This will be completely different from the times it has opened before. If you want to enter with Li Muan, you need to make her body indestructible so that it can be taken there. Then use the power of reincarnation to find her true self and separate her from reincarnation into an immortal existence. The ulcer said rapidly before coughing out another 2 mouthfuls of blood. His blood was like mist and penetrated the formation. 2 more masses of death souls of people Wang Lin had killed formed 2 balls of black gas and flew into the sky. In the sky, they lined up with the previous 4 vortexes. They seemed like they were going to form a circle. Those 2 masses of black gas revealed different images. It wasn't the Celestial clan, but the Ancient clan this time. One showed the Ancient G area, where there was a vast sea. The sea was dark and gave off a smell of decay. This was the famous Death Sea of the Ancient G. Normally, this was a good place for the people of the Ancient G to cultivate. The pressure from the sea would mold a person, and if they could persist, it would help you stimulate their full potential. However, a huge wave appeared in his Death Sea now. This wave spread in all directions, and a howl echoed. The sea depressed, and a huge pillar flew into the sky and disappeared. The Death Sea's level lowered, and now half of the water was missing. As this pillar flew into the sky, a huge pillar also flew out from the sea at the border of the Ancient Tao and Ancient Shi. Large amounts of ripples spread in all directions and attracted the attention of everyone who saw it. However, aside from a few people, no one else knew what was happening. All the answers you want are inside the immemorial God realm. Once you go there, you will know the answer. Inside the formation, the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The black-haired slaughter avatar's gaze fell on the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher. The space you exist in is still different from the space the formation is in. As he spoke, he pointed at the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher. A large amount of black gas came out of the tip of his finger and flew at the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher. The old man didn't dodge at all and allowed the black gas to pass through his body. However, his body seemed intangible and didn't take any damage. It was as if he was only a reflection and didn't exist here. The Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher's pupils shrank as he looked at the slaughter avatar, and dread appeared in his eyes. I still don't believe your words. Wang Lin, who was sitting outside the formation, was watching everything inside the formation. His slaughter avatar had spoken, and he didn't seem to be shocked by the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher's words. The Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher clenched his teeth and suddenly said, "Do you possess a strand of white hair and a fist-sized skull?" When the slaughter avatar heard this, his eyes revealed coldness. Outside the formation, Wang Lin's original body looked up. You have indeed obtained them. When the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher saw this, he became spirited. Seeing the slaughter avatar move, the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher quickly said, after entering the immemorial God realm, with the hair as the guide and the skull to light your way, you will find the truth. If you destroy this formation, this old man's plan will fail, but you will also never know the truth. One day you will even come to regret it. Today's matter was beyond his expectations. He had thought that Wang Lin could not enter this space. He had never expected Wang Lin to have the power to break through the boundaries. Facing the slaughter essence true body, the old man felt an indescribable sense of fear from the bottom of his heart and soul. It shouldn't be like this. Could something have gone wrong? The Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher howled in his heart, but he revealed nothing on his face. However, Wang Lin could destroy the formation at any moment and destroy his year's preparation, so he had been forced to reveal a lot more secrets. The black-haired slaughter slowly said, "Interesting. I can spare this formation, but you have to tell me why this formation requires the souls of those my original body killed to activate." The Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher's expression changed, and he seemed to hesitate, but he immediately saw Wang Lin raise his hand to destroy the formation. Because the immemorial God realm has, the old man clenched his teeth, and just as he was about to say those words, his body trembled. He let out a miserable scream, and his body showed signs of dissipating. This is the law of the realm. I can say it. If this old man were to say this, I would die. The Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher's face instantly turned pale. Slaughter walked forward and coldly said, "Oh, you don't have to tell me that, but you have to tell me who you are. 7-colored is this old man, Ulcer is this old man, and the Ancient Tao Imperial Teacher is also this old man." Even this, as the old man spoke, his body trembled once more and he let out a painful howl. The ancient Tao imperial teacher suddenly became fierce and said, "I can say it." Wang Lin, this formation is important to this old man, but it is also important to you. If you insist on destroying the formation, this old man won't stop you anymore. Everything had gone wrong today because he had never expected Wang Lin to break the boundary and send his slaughter avatar in. Otherwise, he would still been holding the initiative, unlike now, where he was completely passive. Slaughter silently pondered. Outside the formation, Wang Lin's eyes revealed a complicated expression. After a long time, he let out a sigh. After seeing the ancient Tao imperial teacher's reaction, he had a strange guess in his heart. However, this guess was so bizarre, he didn't dare believe it. However, this matter involved Li Muwan. In regards to the matter about Li Muwan, Wang Lin knew the ancient Tao imperial teacher wasn't wrong. The soul blood could awaken her temporarily, but she wouldn't be able to break out from reincarnation and would still die one day. If he wanted to surpass reincarnation, perhaps he would really have to head to the immemorial God realm. Staring at the old man, Wang Lin closed his eyes. At that moment, Slaughter withdrew his right hand. The black gas around him condensed and no longer spread out. Slaughter coldly said, "Continue the formation." The ancient Tao imperial teacher was not surprised. He looked meaningfully at Wang Lin's original body outside the formation before coughing out 2 more mouthfuls of blood. The 2 mouthfuls of blood turned into 2 masses of black gas filled with death souls. They rushed into the sky and combined with the 6 previous vortexes to form a perfect circle. At the same time, at 2 other places in the ancient clan, 2 large pillars flew into the air. The earth trembled as they disappeared into the sky. In the sky, the 8 black vortexes rotated rapidly until one of them erupted with black light. The black light was like ink and spread in all directions. In the blink of an eye, the entire sky turned black. Not only the sky here, but the entire sky of the ancient can turn black. Even the skies of the vast seas and the continents of the celestial clan turned into night. The entire immortal astral continent was shrouded in night. After 9 breaths, the darkness that shrouded the entire immortal astral continent disappeared. Wang Lin looked up at the sky to find that one of the 8 vortexes had disappeared. At the same time, he felt something strange in his heart. He faintly saw that a huge pillar had appeared in the vast sea between the ancient clan and the celestial clan. Just at this moment, one of the 7 remaining vortexes in the sky erupted with the same black light. The sky turned black, and 9 breaths later the darkness disappeared. Only 6 vortexes remained, but a second pillar appeared in the vast sea. As the world alternated between black and white, the entire immortal astral continent began to tremble. Huge waves were set off in the vast sea, creating heaven-shattering rumbles. Wang Lin could vaguely feel everything happening across the vast sea. Something that could affect the entire immortal astral continent could only be caused by the legendary immemorial God realm that could make someone a Grand Empyrean. Immemorial God realm, Wang Lin muttered. He had heard about this place a long time ago, but this was the first time he would witness it opening. This was the 5th time the sky had turned black, and after 9 breaths, it returned today again. Wang Lin looked up and saw that only 3 vortexes remained. Inside the formation, the Ulcer looked excited. He seemed to have been waiting for this for a long time. He seemed to be able to see the changes on the vast sea, and his eyes were filled with desire and madness. I forgot to say, the latest 3 chapters are all 4,000-word major chapters. Is Leo that kind? So this is the moon god. Is it the like button for the VIDEO? Do you all also start the VIDEO? As the entire immortal astral continent alternated between black and white, at Mount Emperor, Grand Empyrean Judy flew out from his closed-door cultivation. He looked into the distance and his expression changed. This is indeed the immemorial God realm. It is open from the ancient clan this time, and the time is a lot earlier than normal. The opening of the immemorial God realm should not open this early. This means this will be the first time the immemorial God realm will open completely, and it will be different from before. A woman's voice came from beside Judy. It was Hai Zi, who was wearing a white robe. She looked into the distance with a complicated gaze. I can divinate it completely. This is all I could see. I also divinated that we have to wait several hundred years for the immemorial God realm to actually open. A complete opening. An unsuppressed excitement appeared in Judy's eyes. If it opens completely, then there might be a method for Grand Empyreans to surpass their current level and reached the level of the celestial ancestor. Celestial clan, the Dao Yi sect. Over the years, the Dao Yi sect had become a gloomy land. Countless powerful people had died, and Grand Empyrean Dao Yi had remained in closed-door cultivation. This caused the population here to become sparse. However, at this moment, a roar came from the Dao Yi sect. As the roar echoed, one of the mountains collapsed and a figure covered in gray gas flew out. This figure was ferocious and stared at the distance. Immemorial God realm. There might be a method for me to completely get rid of the ancestral curse there and allow my cultivation level to increase. Inside the Purple Yang sect, the two lovely little girls were in closed-door cultivation. The celestial ancestor's eyes were between the two of them. The eyes gave off a strange light that connected the two of them. At this moment, the two of them both opened their eyes and looked toward the same direction. Their gazes seemed to penetrate the wall, seeing the world outside. Wu Feng, who was the first in the celestial clan to notice this, was standing on an iceberg with anticipation in his eyes. At the same time, deep under the palace of the celestial ancestral city, there was an overlapping space. Inside the space, there was a mountain, and the madman remained motionless there. Aside from the powerful members of the celestial clan, the people of the ancient clan also paid attention to the opening of the immemorial God realm. The Grand Empyreans of the ancient Ji and ancient Shi both looked over. As for Xuan Luo, he had already noticed that something was wrong as he looked at the deserted mountain Wang Lin had gone to and at the anomalies in the sky. Even the Holy Emperor, who had gone back under the palace, flew out again. She stood next to Xuan Luo and looked at the sky in shock. The immemorial God realm is opening ahead of time. The two of them looked at each other. They didn't continue to speak, but began to ponder. At central area, where the three countries of the ancient clan were connected, a figure was standing inside the top of the tower on top of Mount Gudao and looking at the sky. A sigh came out from the tower. Finally, it has opened completely. When I learned about everything that day, I knew I could not change it. The figure shook his head and revealed a rare trace of bitterness. Hundreds of years later, sea of suffering. All souls beneath the heavens must suffer divine tribulation. Free thyself from convictions that lead only to destruction. Walk the path of the true Tao, the blurry figure muttered. After the sky of the immortal astral continent turned to night for the 8th time and returned to normal, the last vortex above the mountain disappeared. However, the 8 pillars were standing above the vast sea, and no matter how much the waves smashed into them, they didn't move. Within the circle formed by the 8 pillars, the sea gradually turned to fog, but the sea outside the pillars remained liquid. Under the collapsed mountain, the ancient Dao imperial teacher who looked like the Alzer and the 7-colored celestial sovereign had a serious expression. His hands continued to form seals as he pressed down on the formation and muttered a strange sound. His voice sounded like countless people muttering, but it was impossible to hear anything clearly. When Wang Lin heard this, his eyes shined an undetectable amount. Restrain the heavenly Tao. All souls beneath the heavens must suffer divine tribulation. Free thyself from convictions that lead only to destruction. Facing the boundless unknown, all souls must resolve their questions in life and break free from the machinations of heaven. Obtain the path of life and walk the path of the true Tao. The endless murmuring from the ancient Tao imperial teacher suddenly turned to this. The moment his words echoed, the formation released endless light. Then, endless amounts of large nets appeared in this space. This was the net that Wang Lin had broken when it prevented him from entering this space. However, as the light from the formation flashed, cracks appeared in this net. The ancient Tao imperial teacher had used some method to teleport the formation from the space it was in and moved it onto the immortal astral continent. It has to be said that the formation inside the deserted mountain was merely an illusion. Wang Lin had used his full power to break the boundary to enter that space. Now the formation was using the same method to break out and become real. What came with it was Wang Lin's slaughter avatar. At this moment, this avatar was in the same space as Wang Lin's original body. This scene caused Wang Lin's eyes to light up. When the formation penetrated through the boundary and arrived at the immortal astral continent, the ancient Tao imperial teacher let out a roar. 10-colored light erupted from the formation and shot into the sky. From a distance, it looked like it had formed the 9th pillar. Wang Lin's slaughter avatar retreated a few steps and fused with Wang Lin's original body as the light shot into the sky. Wang Lin appeared next to the light and looked at the light going into the sky. He clearly felt the indescribable and terrifying force coming from it. Inside the light pillar, the ancient Tao imperial teacher roared, "Ninth pillar, open the immemorial God realm." The light pillar flew into the sky and flew toward the vast sea between the ancient clan and celestial clan. At the vast sea, inside the circle of the 8 pillars, a ray of light flew in from the distance and the 9th pillar appeared at the center. The sky changed colors and ripples echoed across the sky. Soon, the entire sky of the immortal astral continent was covered in ripples. The entire sea churned as the 9th pillar descended toward the center of the circle formed by the other 8 pillars. The moment it descended, a scene unfolded. This shook the hearts of everyone who saw what was happening here, and they were filled with disbelief. The endless ocean released a loud sound that echoed across the entire immortal astral continent. Then the vast sea slowly rose up. It was as if a giant hand was using a powerful spell to slowly lift this vast sea. It was impossible to describe the size of this vast sea, but lifting the entire sea was not something a Grand Empyrean could do. Not even Grand Empyrean Gudao could do it. When the sea rose, a deep pit was revealed. This deep pit was filled with countless holes and was uneven. It was hidden under the sea and hadn't seen sunlight for countless years. The sea continued to rise, and it soon surpassed the ancient clan and celestial clan. The sea was very deep, so much so that it was difficult to calculate how large it was in a short period of time. When the endless sea flew above the land of the ancient clan and the celestial clan, it was still rising. When people saw this, they were in shock. They couldn't distinguish the difference between the sea and the sky. Just at this instant, the endless sea turned a half circle like a palm that suddenly stood up. The sea rose up so that its depth was now its width, and its width was now its depth. This scene was simply too strange. The 9 pillars in the sky were at the center of the sea. The vast sea was like a huge wall that cut off the celestial clan and the ancient clan. It looked like it had no end and even gave off the sense that it was an illusion. It was impossible to tell if it was the immortal astral continent that had turned, and the sea remained the same, or if the sea had moved, while the immortal astral continent remained stationary. This shocking scene made people feel as if the sky had been reversed. The 9 pillars at the center of the sea began to slowly rotate, picking up speed as they moved. From far away, they looked like a storm that connected the sky and the earth. One could vaguely see the 9 pillars inside the storm shine and form a giant door. The door was closed and hadn't opened. Unfortunately, your slaughter is not enough, otherwise the door could be opened immediately. But now it will take 500 years for enough power to gather to open the door. So, Wang Lin, let us meet again in 500 years in the immemorial God realm. When we meet again, you will know the truth. In the deserted mountain outside the ancient Tao imperial city, the ancient Tao imperial teacher slowly disappeared from the flashing formation. Wang Lin looked at the dissipating figure and suddenly said, "The Donglin sect was destroyed by you." But he didn't get a reply. A laugh echoed as the formation dissipated, and the ancient Tao imperial teacher disappeared. This place was still in ruins. Wang Lin silently pondered for a long time, and then turned around. He flew off into the sky as a ray of light and disappeared. Wang Lin no longer had any reason to stay at the ancient Tao. Everything had become the past. However, there was a person here that he still considered his teacher, even though he had used his death to cut their relationship. A teacher he couldn't acknowledge but would forever remain his teacher in his heart. It's been a long time since wishing for likes on the VIDEO. The little pig wishing for the like button for the VIDEO's support. The storm at the ancient Tao Imperial Palace, where Xuan Luo's disciple Wang Lin had stormed the palace and used his death to repay Xuan Luo's kindness, had attracted the attention of countless people. In the end, he killed the ancient Tao Emperor, and not even the holy Emperor Yi Wei was able to stop Wang Lin from leaving. This news gradually spread after the members of the other 2 clans left. Almost everyone who was qualified knew about it. This matter should have caused a bigger wave, but another even more shocking matter made it slowly fade. The early opening of the immemorial God realm set off a wave across the entire ancient clan. The vast sea between the ancient clan and the celestial clan had become giant pit. The pit was endless and gave off the smell of decay. At the center of the sea was a storm that rumbled loudly. In the swirling sea, the door formed by the 9 heaven-piercing pillars loomed. This attracted the attention of a lot of powerful people, but after observing it, they all left. Judy had also personally come here, but even with his cultivation level, he could not get far into the storm. Not to mention the door was not open. Judging with his cultivation level and high ZS estimation, it would take 500 years for it to open. And this time, it would be a never-before-seen complete opening. Dao Yi, Wu Feng, and ancient clan Grand Empyreans, including Xuan Luo, had all come. They silently looked door from outside the storm and silently left. But at the same time, a message had come down from Mount Gudao to the 3 royal clans and their Grand Empyreans. The message was very simple. It told people to stop observing the immemorial God realm and that it would open in 500 years. The message also told the 3 clans and their respective Grand Empyreans to prepare for battle in 500 years. Mount Gudao didn't pay any heed to the death of the ancient Dao Emperor. This strange phenomenon made the part of the ancient Dao that was advocating for Grand Empyrean Gudao to hunt Wang Lin down to become silent and never mention this matter again. Similar to the ancient clan, the Celestial clan had also sent out a message to all continents that the immemorial God realm would open in 500 years. They were to spend these 500 years training the powerful people under them. The Empyrean exalts and Ascendant Empyreans were the most excited. The immemorial God realm was like the Dragon-S gate for them. Once they obtained a fortune, they would become a Grand Empyrean. Because of the appearance of the immemorial God realm, a storm had been set off on the immortal astral continent. However, due to the 500-year wait, the storm was suppressed into an undercurrent. It was like the calm before the storm. Whether it was the ancient clan or Celestial clan members, if they believed they were qualified to enter the immemorial God realm, they felt a powerful pressure. They vaguely knew that the moment the immemorial God realm opened, a grand event would take place. But this matter would likely result in a war between the Celestial clan and the Ancient clan after being at peace for so long. The Ancient clan was preparing, the Celestial clan was the same. 500 years, only 500 years. For mortals, low-level cultivators, and low-level members of the 3 clans, 500 years may seem long. However, for the powerful, 500 years was just the blink of an eye. Signs of war appeared across the immortal astral continent due to the appearance of the immemorial God realm. In a country at the border of the ancient Dao and ancient Shi, it was the rainy season. The rain was not strong, but it seemed like it was going to last for a long time. Even in the rain, the ancient cities remained bustling. The rain quietly fell on the earth and accumulated into small rivers. The sky was dim and seemed hazy. In a mountain not far in the distance, there was a young man in white holding a paper umbrella. Beside him was a woman. She was very beautiful, and she also looked ahead with the young man. "There are stories about you and the soul fragment inside me named Wan Er," the woman said softly as she withdrew his gaze from the rain and looked at the man in white beside her. It was this man who had broke into the ancient Dao palace, killed the ancient Dao emperor, and walked out of there with the power of one person, yet no one had dared to stop him. It was him who had brought her here. She didn't know what Wang Lin was going to do, but on the way here, the man's gentleness and consideration made her feel a warmth from the bottom of her heart. On the way, the man had told her a story. It was a long story. A chance encounter, a love that began with "I'll take you to kill," and ended with "even if heaven wants you to die, I'll take you back," followed by thousands of years of sorrow and reminiscence. Wang Lin looked at the woman before him, revealing a gentle gaze, and nodded. The woman was silent. She could feel that Wang Lin's gentle gaze was not toward her, but the soul fragment inside her. She looked at the rain in the distance and spoke softly. "Where are we going?" "To the place we first met." Wang Lin held Songji as they faced the rain and walked into the distance. He didn't move at full speed for this trip, because he had to take care of Songji's weak body and the unstable soul fragment inside her. As a result, it had been a year since he had killed the ancient Dao emperor. During this year, Wang Lin had not been hunted by Mount Gudao, and the ancient Dao hadn't said anything about this matter. Wang Lin calmly brought the woman to the edge of the ancient Dao territory. Past this place would be the ancient Shi. "Where we first met is at Blackstone City." The woman's black hair was blown by the wind, and a few strands flew into Wang Lin's face, entangling with his white hair. Wang Lin didn't speak and gradually disappeared with her into the rain. A few months later, Wang Lin and Songji left the ancient Dao and arrived at the ancient Shi. After arriving here, Song Ji's mood was no longer down. Looking at the ancient she found a sense of familiarity. But she spoke less and less. Facing Wang Lin, she became more and more silent and felt complicated. During this trip, she could sometimes feel Wang Lin sending a warm energy into her body. She didn't know what it did, but she could feel the soul fragment that had merged with her show signs of separation. He is separating the soul of the woman named Wan Er. Perhaps when the soul completely separates, that will be the moment of my death, but to be able to see my hometown, to see Aunt Chang and Sister Dong, is also very good. Song Ji felt bitter in her heart and silently pondered. She was afraid but powerless. Wang Lin saw all of this, but he didn't explain anything. They were getting closer to Blackstone City. Several more months passed. As the sun set on a deserted mountain, Song Ji looked into the distance and asked the man beside her, "We will arrive at Blackstone City tomorrow?" Just now, Wang Lin had told her that they would reach her hometown of Blackstone City tomorrow. Wang Lin nodded. Song Ji silently pondered for a moment and then smiled as she looked at Wang Lin. She looked at the person who had accompanied her for more than a year. She looked at the youthful face that gave off an ancient aura. Wan Er is very fortunate. I hope you and her will be happy forever. At the noon of the next day, Blackstone City could be seen from the distance. The city made of black stone appeared in her eyes and made Song Ji feel a sense of home. Less than 500 meters from the city, Wang Lin stopped. Song Ji looked at Wang Lin and softly said, "Can you let me touch your face?" Wang Lin looked at the woman, and after a long time, he gently nodded. Song Ji smiled and her face suddenly turned red. She caressed Wang Lin's ordinary-looking face, and after a moment she placed her head against Wang Lin's chest. She could hear his heartbeat. The sound of his heartbeat made her close her eyes. Wang Lin lowered his head and stroked her hair. A fragrance came from her and drilled into Wang Lin's nose. The two of them remained like this for some time. When the setting sun became faintly red and dim, Song Ji raised her head from Wang Lin's chest. "If I die, please." "You want to die?" Wang Lin calmly looked at the woman. As he spoke, he pointed to the spot between her eyebrows. Song Ji's vision became blurry, and she fell down as if she was asleep. Half an hour later, her eyes were filled with confusion when she woke up. She silently looked around with a frown, and after a long time she seemed to remember something. At this moment, the sun had mostly set and was about to disappear. Song Ji stood up and looked at her neck to find a jade pendant that gave off warmth. She could feel that Wan Er's soul fragment had disappeared. She was no longer Song Ji, and she hadn't suffered any injuries. However, she felt a ripple across her heart, and her eyes were emotional. After a long time, she turned and walked toward Blackstone City, which was not far away. This was her home. The year of the dragon is approaching. Leo's year is coming fast, fervently shouting for the like button for the video, wishing to be drowned in happiness by the likes for the video. Blackstone City was the same as before she left. She didn't meet any guards on her way in, as if the city lord had received an order. But when she arrived at her house, she saw two people standing there. One was a white-haired old woman and the other was a young girl. "Aunt Chang's Sister Dong, I am back." Song Ji bit her lower lip and smiled. Outside Blackstone City, Wang Lin stood where Song Ji had stood and looked at the city. After a while, he withdrew his divine sense. The woman was very pitiful. The fusion with Wan Er's soul had harmed her greatly. Her memory was in disarray and she could not tell who she was. Wang Lin could have ignored her weakness and disregarded her life to separate Li Muwan's soul. However, the result would be been her life force extinguishing. Wang Lin had cultivated for thousands of years. People thought that he was very ruthless and cold-blooded, but he was still human. He didn't want to do this, so he had spent nearly 2 years slowly making his way here. Along the way, he had slowly sent his cultivation into her body so that Li Muwan's soul could be separated without harming her. She is innocent, but it was also her who allowed me to find Wan Er's soul, so she should not be hurt for this. The jade I left with her contains my divine sense and should keep her safe. "Jidu, you have to properly take care of her," Wang Lin slowly said. Ripple echoed behind Wang Lin, and Prince Jidu walked out. He respectfully said, "As Godfather commands." "I have informed the city lord to guard Song Ji to not allow her to suffer any harm. Please rest assured, I have even sent guards to live here to protect her." Prince Ji-du knew how important Song Ji was to his godfather, so he didn't dare to be sloppy in this regard. Prince Ji-du had stayed here because, according to his analysis, Wang Lin would likely come here. He had waited here ever since he returned from the ancient Tao, and Wang Lin had finally arrived. Wang Lin didn't show any emotions about the fact that Ji-du had waited here. On the contrary, if Ji-du hadn't done this, then it meant that he would not be useful to Wang Lin, and it would be very difficult for Ji-du to obtain the position of ancient emperor. Let's go. Wang Lin glanced at Blackstone City once more, and then walked into the distance. Ji-du suppressed the excitement in his heart and followed Wang Lin. Wang Lin walked ahead and calmly said, "Prepare a place for me, I'm going into closed-door cultivation. Child has a secret chamber in my palace. If Godfather isn't happy with it, I can get people to immediately create another," Prince Ji-du quickly replied. Wang Lin waved his sleeve and the world around them distorted, and both of them disappeared. When they reappeared, they were inside Prince Ji-du's palace. "This secret chamber is fine. Without my permission, no one is allowed to cause any disturbance." Wang Lin's gaze fell on the palace, and he chose a secret chamber to enter. Seeing that Wang Lin was about to step into the secret chamber, Prince Ji-du hesitated. He seemed to want to say something but seemed afraid to speak. Wang Lin was halfway into the chamber when he paused and looked at Prince Ji-du. "If you want to become the ancient Shi Emperor, then Grand Empyrean Song Tian is key. If he recognizes you as the only candidate, then everything will be simple." Prince Ji-du looked helpless and spoke with a bitter smile. "Child doesn't know what I have done to provoke Lord Song. Usually when I go see him, he doesn't meet with me, and even when I meet him in the palace, he is very cold. My younger brother Chi Man is very close to Lord Song. He lives on Origin Mountain and is rumored to have been accepted as Lord Song's disciple. Father also seems to care a lot about Chi Man. The entire ancient Shi is leaning toward him as the next emperor," Ji-du said bitterly. Wang Lin's expression was calm, and after hearing this, he silently pondered for a moment. "The Grand Empyrean of each clan can appoint each generation of emperor, but it is without exception I think you are prepared." Wang Lin looked profoundly at Prince Ji-du. Prince Ji-du immediately felt like he had been completely seen through by Wang Lin, unable to even hide his thoughts. Prince Ji-du knelt down and respectfully said, "Child is still preparing. I am unwilling to fail and be forced out as a king. Once I lose the chance to become the emperor, there will be no second chance. Whether it is intelligence or cunning, I am better than that Chi Man. I am unwilling to give up. I hope Godfather will help me. Once I become the emperor, I'll fulfill my previous agreement and won't dare to go back on it." Wang Lin's expression remained calm, and he said, "Aside from your younger brother, there should be another opponent. And also senior brother when he was born, there was a change in the world. It even attracted the attention of Grand Empyrean Gudao and a gift was sent. He also has a high possibility of obtaining the position of emperor." Ji-du smiled bitterly. Wang Lin pondered for a bit and said, "I don't care about your preparations, but I can go meet that Song Tian to see if he can appoint you as the next emperor." When Prince Ji-du heard this, he was ecstatic, but his expression didn't change much. He only nodded respectfully. Looking at Ji-du before him, Wang Lin could see that formidable person. Someone who could cover up their emotions and knew their limits. "We'll talk about this matter after I come out of closed-door cultivation. If there is nothing important, don't disturb me." Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and returned to the chamber. After the door closed, the place became silent. Prince Ji-du knelt there for a while longer before he respectfully got up and revealed unabashed joy in his eyes. "With Godfather's power, Lord Song might really change his mind, but I need to begin my plan as well. This time, I must fight. Once I am successful, in 200 years Ji-du will be the ancient Shi Emperor." Prince Ji-du was excited and took a few deep breaths before he suppressed his excitement. He immediately sent out a command to make this a forbidden area, and anyone that dared to trespass would be immediately killed. He had even brought over several guards to protect this place day and night. Wang Lin walked into the secret chamber and looked around. He waved his right hand and a large amount of restrictions scattered across the room, sealing the entire chamber. With Wang Lin's current cultivation level, the restrictions he had placed made it so not even Grand Empyreans could enter without him knowing. He sat on the ground and his eyes lit up. Aside from sending Song Ji home, there was a deeper meaning to him coming to the ancient Shi. and helping Prince Jidu become the ancient Shi Emperor. One drop of soul blood can make Wang Er's body enter the immemorial god realm back in the Purple Yang sect. He had seen many records about the immemorial god realm from Gemini. There were some descriptions of the immemorial god realm. As for when it appeared, no one knew, but from what he could gather, a powerful pressure could hide one from the operations of the world there. The souls of the people who died there would not enter reincarnation, as if even reincarnation was stopped there. This was very similar to what the ancient Tao imperial teacher had said. That was why Wang Lin had allowed the ancient Tao imperial teacher to activate the formation and open the immemorial god realm. Wang Er's body can survive the immemorial god realm, and according to the ancient Tao imperial teacher, although the soul blood can make up for it, one drop is obviously far from enough. The ancient Tao imperial teacher painstakingly opened the immemorial god realm. He used the truth as lure and Wang Er's reincarnation as bait to make me go there no matter what. His purpose is to make me believe him, so he should be at least telling the truth regarding Wang Er. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to go, Wang Lin silently pondered. The biggest reason he was going to help Jidu was that he needed more soul blood. In order to get more, he had to go to the ancestral temple to go through the last trial. This is the only way to have a chance to obtain the approval of the ancient ancestor again and perhaps obtain more soul blood. I can no longer go back to the ancient Tao, and the right to open the ancestral temple is not in the hands of the Grand Empyreans. This right belongs to the current emperor. Even if Lu Chen is recognized as the ancient Tao emperor, I still don't want to go back to the ancient Tao Wang Lin's side and revealed a complicated expression. As for the ancient Ji, I haven't had much contact with them. The ancient Shi is much more suitable for me, especially since although Jidu is ambitious, he doesn't dare to go against my intentions. 500 years, the last 500 years. Wang Lin took a deep breath and waved his hand. A crystal clear coffin appeared before him. Li Muan seemed to be sleeping inside the coffin. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan and his expression became gentle. His left hand hit his forehead and a ray of silver light shined. There was a blurry shadow inside the silver light. This shadow was Li Muan's soul fragment. Wang Er, from now on, your soul will be complete. I'll awaken you not just for decades, but for a lifetime. Wang Lin raised his finger and the ray of light shot toward Li Muan. Her eyelashes suddenly quivered as if she was going to awaken, but they soon calmed down. However, 2 streams of crystal clear tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. 6,000 words in a major chapter. Wishing for sharing, for likes on the video. Looking at Li Muan inside the coffin, he looked at her trembling eyelashes and her crystal clear tears. Wang Lin gently wiped her tears away. The teardrops were still hanging on his finger. He put the tears beside his mouth and licked them. It was very bitter, but afterward there was a hint of dry sweetness. It was an unspeakable feeling. Wang Lin looked at Li Muan for a long time. He didn't care about the passage of time, but continued to look at Li Muan's face. This lasted for 1 day, until Wang Lin's heart gradually calmed down. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were filled with determination and decisiveness. Wang Lin bent down and his face touched Li Muan's pale lips. He muttered into Li Muan's ear words that only he could hear. A moment later, Wang Lin waved his sleeve and Li Muan's coffin disappeared without a trace. Inside the secret chamber, only Wang Lin alone remained. Not far away, there was an oil lamp. This oil lamp was very mysterious. Even without external force, it would burn for thousands of years. It was now flickering in the dark chamber. This made Wang Lin's shadow also flicker. Wang Lin's left hand reached at the void, and a ray of golden light appeared. The celestial emperor's soul appeared in his hand. The soul's eyes were closed, and although it was covered in golden light, it emitted a powerful gray color of decay. Looking at the soul, Wang Lin hesitated a bit, but he clenched his teeth and spat out a mouthful of green fire. This green fire was his soul fire, and it began burning the celestial emperor's soul. Whether this soul is useful to me or not will depend on whether I can expel the ancestral curse. This process will be very slow. Wang Lin looked at the celestial emperor's soul surrounded by his soul fire. After a long time he withdrew his gaze and closed his eyes. His breathing was faint and he remained motionless. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 3 years went by. During these 3 years, no one had come to disturb Wang Lin. He hadn't moved at all inside the secret chamber. In his body, the ancient power and celestial cultivation moved smoothly. However, the fusion of ancient and celestial power he had obtained at Mount Gudao hadn't completed a cycle at all. It had only moved a short distance. The celestial emperor's soul that was being refined by the soul fire and hadn't changed much. However, the decay inside had slowed down a lot. Wang Lin hadn't thought about anything going on outside. His secret chamber was being guarded by many people, and no one was allowed to enter. During these 3 years, Prince Jidu didn't leave and arrange matters in the place. Sometimes people would come from the outside and have secret talks with him. Then they would be filled with excitement and quickly leave. During the 3 years, Prince Jidu was like the wind and rain, no matter how important things were. He would personally stand outside Wang Lin's secret chamber with reverence on his face for half an hour before respectfully leaving. On this day, after 3 years, Wang Lin opened his eyes for the first time. The moment his eyes opened, 2 rays of crystal clear light shined. Overlapping shadows appeared on his body, and his 5-element true body walked out and sat down opposite of him. The 5 elements in the 5-element true body had all formed their essence true bodies and fused into one. The complete 5-element true body was the most developed out of his essences. This was almost the limit, unless he took one more step for his 5-element true body to turn into true soul. After the 5-element true body sat down, he closed his eyes and sat down. He cultivated together with Wang Lin's original body, and another 3 years passed. This was the 6th year since Wang Lin entered closed-door cultivation. Another shadow overlapped with his body and killing intent spread out. Wang Lin's slaughter thunder essence true body walked out. His black hair fluttered as he coldly walked toward another corner and sat down. At this moment, the scene inside the secret chamber was very strange. 3 figures that all looked like Wang Lin sat in a triangle and were all cultivating. As for the celestial emperor's soul, after 6 years of burning, the decay inside had slowed down. Perhaps one day, when the decay was completely removed, Wang Lin would be able to slowly refine it. Time left no trace, and another 3 years passed. On the 9th year of Wang Lin's closed-door cultivation, another shadow overlapped with his body. This mass was not able to condense into a figure. After it appeared, this fuzzy mass of light floated out from Wang Lin's body and stopped 10 feet behind him. Wang Lin opened his eyes and looked at his 3 essence true bodies. During these 9 years of time, Wang Lin had pushed his ancient power to its peak, and at the same time, his 3 essence true bodies had reached their respective peaks. Right now, he was confident in battling a peak Grand Empyrean Dao Yi and not lose out. He even felt like he should be able to suppress Dao Yi. Among the Grand Empyreans, the Celestial Clan's Dao Yi is the weakest. With my current strength, although I'm no match for Judy, I should be on par with Wu Feng. Even in the ancient clan, I should be able to battle against Song Tian, who is similar in power to teacher Xuan Luo, but the victor would be uncertain. This is still before I use my strongest avatar. Wang Lin remained calm as he pondered. A moment later, he looked at the celestial emperor's soul being refined by his soul fire. With my soul fire to burn it, there is indeed some effect, but it is slow. I wonder when it will be complete. Wang Lin looked at the celestial emperor's soul for a long time before withdrawing his gaze. I temporarily don't need to worry about the 5-element true body. Back at the ancient Dao Imperial City, it reached completion and allowed me to reach peak void tribulent. This means my speculation was correct. If I want to increase my cultivation level, the next step is the Slaughter Thunder Essence True Body. Wang Lin looked at his Slaughter Thunder Essence True Body, and his eyes revealed a strange light. As for the things needed to complete this true body, teacher, he has taken me to many places across the ancient clan and obtained enough items. Wang Lin sighed and withdrew his gaze. His gaze seemed turned toward the direction of the ancient Dao. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through the room, to the back mountain of the ancient Dao temple, to the old man that was no longer young. After a long time, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. He had made a decision to not leave closed-door cultivation until his cultivation level increased. He had to raise his cultivation level to not only overcome Grand Empyrean Song Tian, but also to not have to fear Grand Empyrean Gu Dao. Only then would he be confident in making Grand Empyrean Song Tian choose Jidu and get him into the ancestral temple. Most importantly, He needed the power to enter the immemorial God realm to push away all the fog in his way and find the secret goal of the ancient Tao imperial teacher. Grand Empyrean Gu Dao's attitude is very strange. He didn't come find me due to the matter at the ancient Tao, but I still have to rely on my own strength to resolve all my problems. I can allow my life to be decided by the will of another. Wang Lin looked at his Slaughter Thunder Essence true body, and his eyes lit up. His cultivation path was completely different from that of others. It was a path he had figured out on his own, and only he could point himself to where to go next. Only by trying could he see how it would go. This Slaughter Thunder Essence true body is made of special essences. The Thunder Essence has formed a true body, but the rest are only at completion. Slaughter, absolute end, absolute beginning, restriction, Wang Lin murmured as he pointed at the Slaughter Thunder Essence true body. The true body trembled and slowly split before Wang Lin. The true body was surrounded by thunder and 4 separate clouds of fog appeared. When one of them appeared, the entire room became cold and a Gray's killing intent filled the area. This was the Slaughter Essence. There was another cloud of fog that flashed countless strange symbols. As the fog moved, more and more symbols appeared. This was the Restriction Essence. As for the remaining 2 clouds of fog, one gave off light and the other was completely dark. They were respectively absolute beginning and absolute end. Only when all 4 essences form their essence true bodies and fuse into a complete Slaughter Thunder Essence true body can my cultivation level break past peak void tribulant. This perhaps may be Empyrean Exalt or Ascendant Empyrean, but it is possible it could be neither and be an unknown realm. Perhaps it might even be Grand Empyrean. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with expectation. From his understanding, the Empyrean Exalts and Ascendant Empyreans were just people at the peak of void tribulant. However, the step to reach Grand Empyrean was too difficult, so they were separated into more ranks. In fact, both Empyrean Exalts and Ascendant Empyreans, fundamentally speaking, were all peak void tribulant cultivators. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering a bit, he raised his right hand and waved at the roof of the secret chamber. A strange scene occurred as the ceiling turned into the sky. There was blue sky, white clouds, and clear sky for thousands of kilometers, but there was no sun. Wang Lin didn't hesitate to grab the absolute beginning essence and throw it into the sky-like ceiling. It shined brightly like the sun. Wang Lin looked up at the ceiling that had turned into the sky, and under his gaze, the sky seemed to change. Soon a whole day passed and the absolute beginning, which had turned into the sun, gradually set. Nearly 3,800 words, already quite long. Day by day people say it's short, look at others, all are 2,000 words a chapter. Leo is that long. Wouldn't you cast a like for Leo's video? After the sun disappeared and the sky became dark, Wang Lin grabbed the absolute end essence. The essence flew into the dark sky and disappeared. Staring at the sky that had appeared on the ceiling, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. His hands formed seals, and he muttered softly. Flowing time, his self-created spell that controlled the flow of time and could reverse thousands of years in an instant. This spell had its uses outside of battle. Right now, Wang Lin was using it to strengthen his essences. The operations of the heavens and earth were very difficult for cultivators to control. Wang Lin was trying to create his own sky and giving it night and day, which was very difficult. At this moment, if someone else saw this, they would certainly be shocked. The spells the Dao Wang clan used to create caves and the Grand Empyrean's power to create things from the void, adding my flowing time spell, I can recreate the movement of the world. And I am only refining one wall of this chamber, so it is still something I can control. Wang Lin looked at the ceiling and saw that day and night had altered more than a dozen times in a short period of time. I hope I can use this method to deepen my comprehension of the absolute beginning and absolute end essences. Wang Lin hit his forehead, and a part of his origin soul flew into the ceiling to comprehend the alternating day and night. This wisp of origin soul fused into the ceiling, and then Wang Lin no longer paid any heed to it. Comprehension couldn't be done in a short period of time. When he withdraws that wisp of origin soul in the future, he will obtain all the comprehension gained over the years. Restriction essence. Wang Lin looked at the strange fog where countless symbols were flickering. This was the restriction essence, and it had accompanied him from back in the land of the ancient god. After silently pondering for a while, Wang Lin remembered that his teacher, Xuan Luo, had taken him to several places. He had obtained a large amount of restrictions, and they would be of great use to strengthen his restriction essence. He let out a sigh and pointed at this 5-element true body. The 5-element true body looked at Wang Lin and his eyes lit up. Then the 5-element true body split into 5 rays of light and flew into the restriction essence. It was going to replace Wang Lin in integrating the large amount of restrictions into the restriction essence. In the end, Wang Lin looked at the Slaughter Thunder essence. The Slaughter essence was the most important and most elusive essence he had. Slaughter, when he first appeared, he called himself Slaughter. The ancient Tao Imperial teacher also knows this avatar Wang Lin's expression was complicated. He had his own speculations, only they were buried deep inside his heart. Slaughter is an immortal body. It represents destruction and therefore can be erased. This Slaughter essence is only a completion, so it can form an essence true body yet. I don't know if what I am doing is right or wrong. Wang Lin hesitated. I have been suppressing this Slaughter essence. It was born when I fused it with thunder, then I used restriction to balance it out. Then it was fused with absolute end, making it stronger, so I used absolute beginning to balance it out once more. As a result, if they all reach essence true bodies, everything should reach a balance. Besides, I have other methods, Wang Lin muttered to himself before revealing a decisive gaze. At his moment, he could not hesitate. If he wanted to increase his cultivation level, he would have to do this. Staring at the Slaughter essence and the Thunder essence true body, Wang Lin made up his mind. The Thunder essence true body opened his eyes and inhaled the Slaughter essence. The thunder around his body suddenly changed to black. Slaughter thunder descended once more. Looking at this strange essence true body, Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. His hands formed a seal, and he pointed at this essence true body. The Slaughter thunder essence true body flew toward Wang Lin and overlapped with him. Wang Lin was using his own body's countless years of slaughter to nourish this Slaughter essence. During this process, there was still an overlapping shadow on Wang Lin, as if it was very difficult to fuse. But Wang Lin was not surprised. It was as if he had already anticipated this. His hands continued to form seals, and then he pointed at his own body. Every time he pointed, the overlapping shadow would disappear a bit. As he continued, sweat appeared on his forehead, and his expression was very heavy. After an unknown amount of time had passed, when he pointed for the last time, his Slaughter thunder essence had fully integrated with his body without any overlapping shadows. Then he bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. He waved his right hand and the blood turned into runes that all landed on Wang Lin's body. Blood refine! Wang Lin roared before he closed his eyes and remained motionless. While he was strengthening the Slaughter essence in order to prevent future accidents, he was going to refine Slaughter again. This was not the first time he was going to refine this Slaughter thunder. The first time was when he accidentally created it. Time passed. Time left no trace, and without feeling anything, the years passed one by one. When the immemorial God realm appeared, the undercurrent across the immortal astral continent became more silent. However, this simply created a pressure that shrouded the entire immortal astral continent. The sects of the various celestial clans all became silent, and there was a rare moment of peace. All of them were gathering their power for when the immemorial God realm opened. Any sect with power felt that after this period of suppression, a long war that would last for hundreds of years between the Celestial Clan and the Ancient Clan would begin. During this battle, even Grand Empyreans may fall. As for the Ascendant Empyreans and Empyrean Exalts of the various sects, some would disappear and some would become famous. In the Ancient Clan, it was the same. The 3 royal families followed the order of Grand Empyrean Gudao and prepared for war. They could all feel the pressure, and their respective Grand Empyreans had gone into closed-door cultivation. In the ancient Tao, Luo Chen had become the new emperor. However, as the new emperor, he was not familiar with the entire ancient Tao. He would need time to adapt before he could truly possess everything. During this process, Holy Emperor Ye Wei temporarily replaced the current emperor in dealing with the ancient Tao. As for Xuan Luo, after appointing Luo Chen as the emperor, he had gone into closed-door cultivation. He was close to his reincarnation and had to face the opening of the immemorial God realm. Now was not the best time to reincarnate. He had to suppress it and wait for everything to calm down before reincarnating. Launch art! The ancient Shi was facing a similar problem. The old emperor was getting old, and according to the ancient agreement, unless Grand Empyrean Gudao allowed it, he would have to abdicate his position to his descendants. Now there were still 100 years or so before he would have to abdicate his position. He remained silent, as he had no right to choose, so all the princes had set their sights on Grand Empyrean Song Tian. Ji-du had gone to meet Grand Empyrean Song Tian many times but was stopped outside the Origin Mountain every time. The time was approaching, and once Grand Empyrean Song Tian made his decision, it would be too late. At this moment, there were 3 people sitting inside Prince Ji-du's palace. One of them was Ji-du. He was frowning and looking very anxious. There was a young woman beside him. She occasionally looked at Ji-du with anxiety in her eyes as well. Brother, Senior Wang Lin has been in closed-door cultivation for 100 years. The date of Father's abdication is getting closer and closer. According to customs, a new emperor will be chosen 100 years before the abdication. In terms of time, it should be decided in these several years. If you Don T asked Senior Wang Lin for help, I am afraid it will be too late, the young woman sighed. She was the young woman who was beside Ji-du back then, and then later married one of the geniuses of the ancient Xi. He was considered the strongest member of the new generation, and was a close ally of Ji-du. He said beside the young woman, and coldly looked at all of this. Rumor has it that this senior is supposed to be the 10th son, but after he left the ancient Tao, he immediately went into closed-door cultivation. He seems to be injured. Can he really make Lord Song change his mind? The person who spoke was the young man in purple, the woman's husband. Royal brother. The woman became even more anxious. Prince Ji-du struggled for a long time before he let out a sigh and deceivingly said, "There's no need to talk about this." Godfather said to not disturb him. This the young woman bit her lower lip. After seeing Ji-du's decisive gaze, she swallowed her words. Only the young man in the purple robe revealed a sneer. Apparently, only he didn't think that Wang Lin was as terrifying as the rumors claimed. Even if Godfather doesn't come out, I have prepared for 100 years and I can still try. If Chi Man and my royal older brother were to die, would Lord Song still pick a dead man as the next emperor? There was a flash of coldness in Ji-du's eyes. After he spoke, the entire hall became cold, and the young woman's heart trembled as if she wanted to say something, but she could only smile bitterly. This royal brother of hers had changed too much in the past 100 years, and this made her feel estranged. The hall was completely silent. Even the young man in purple had become silent after hearing Ji-du's words. He raised his head to speak, but just at this moment a powerful pressure descended. When the pressure appeared, the world changed colors and a shocking change occurred. An indescribable aura came out of Wang Lin's chamber and shot into the sky. The originally clear sky seemed to collapse as large amounts of fragments scattered in all directions. A heavenly sign. It came from Godfather's closed-door cultivation chamber. Godfather has come out of closed-door cultivation. Ji-du got up and was excited. The last day of June, wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. A sweep of the like button for the VIDEO each month. The June ticket expires tonight at 12. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 204, The Ancient Mirror and the Restriction Flag. After laying down the restriction, Wang Lin stopped watching Yun Fei. With a wave of his hand, he divided the cave in half, separating their living spaces. He also placed a restriction in between. Sitting cross-legged in the cave, Wang Lin pointed his finger between his brows. Suddenly, a ghost appeared. The ghost was a blur and was only 8 palm sizes large, but it was in the shape of a beast. This ghost was the second devil used by Wang Lin in the land of the ancient god. After the second devil appeared, it floated in midair, motionless, waiting for Wang Lin's command. Since Wang Lin formed his soul core, the last bit of rebellious feelings that the second devil had involuntarily disappeared. Wang Lin pointed his finger at it. The second devil's ghost form quickly faded until it disappeared, but if Wang Lin used his power as a soul devourer, he could clearly feel where the second devil was. He sent out a message to the second devil with this divine sense, and the second devil quietly moved toward Yun Fei and landed on the restriction that Wang Lin had just placed on her. Yun Fei didn't notice this process at all. After doing all this, Wang Lin no longer paid any more attention to her. He sat there and organized his thoughts on what had happened in the land of the ancient god in the past 200 years. During this time, he encountered many things and almost died on several occasions. But now, he felt like he had seen a dream. He couldn't really tell which parts were real and which parts weren't. After a long time, Wang Lin let out a sigh. Although he received the inheritance of knowledge, it was only part of the true inheritance. The other part was the inheritance of power. The master of the Blood Sea wouldn't just give it up. Once he finds a way to leave the land of the ancient god, the first thing he will do is find Wang Lin, who took the inheritance of knowledge, and steal it. Once Wang Lin loses the inheritance of knowledge, he won't have any way to protect himself. This matter felt like a giant mountain weighing down his heart. But under Wang Lin's analysis, if the red-haired man really wanted to leave the land of the ancient god, it wouldn't be a simple matter, so Wang Lin wouldn't have to worry about him for now. However, some preparation was still needed. Wang Lin had decided that once he had settled down in Lin City, he would get Yun Fei to help him search for the ancient transfer arrays in the mainland of the Sea of Devils. He had more than 20 top-quality spirit stones, enough for him to open up a transfer array to anywhere he wanted. But prior to this, he had to carefully study the ancient transfer array. If he didn't understand them, even if he were to find the method of using them, he wouldn't dare do so. This was one of the reasons why he came to Lin City. In addition, he had reached the peak of late-stage Jidan and was only one step away from Yuan Ying, but that one step was like a giant gap, which he hadn't been able to cross. Wang Lin didn't know if forming the Yuan Ying was as difficult for others as it was for him, but for him it was much more difficult than he imagined. He had used the Dragon's spinal fluid and other pills that should help with the process, but even then, he still couldn't form his Yuan Ying. Not even a trace of his Yuan Ying forming had appeared yet. Wang Lin had tried to analyze this before, to see if it had anything to do with his Ji realm, but based on the little amount of understanding he got when the Ji realm entered his soul, this strange state would make forming the Yuan Ying stage and going past his 3 stages much more difficult. However, after one get past the Yuan Ying late stage and into the spirit forming stage, if compared to any cultivator of the same level, then the Ji realm owner held an absolute advantage. In fact, he never had much understanding of the Ji realm. Another reason why he came to Lin City was to see if he could find any text about the Ji realm. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. After pondering for a while, he took out several bags of holding. All of these were things he had acquired while he was at the land of the ancient god. First was Ancient Emperor's bag of holding. When he tried to enter it with his divine sense, he felt a gentle energy pushing his divine sense out. Wang Lin's gaze focused on the bag of holding. He pondered a little. It seemed Ancient Emperor wasn't dead yet. He sneered. He put that bag to the side and moved on to the other bags. The bag that made him the most excited was the one holding Duomu S Group S10 instruments. With a wave of his hand, the 10 instruments fell out of the bag. The 10 instruments floated before him. Besides the half-moon blade, which still had a faint glow, the other 9 instruments were no longer glowing. Wang Lin's divine soul quickly moved toward those 9 instruments, however. The moment his divine sense touched them, his expression darkened. Although the owner of the 9 instruments was dead, there was another divine sense on them that prevented Wang Lin from using them. His eyes lit up. He pondered for a while and suddenly remembered that before the instruments were handed to him, the old man had made a print on each one. Wang Lin frowned. He once again surrounded the instruments with his divine sense. This time, he carefully studied each instrument. He spent a lot of time looking for the fluctuations of divine sense on the instruments. After a long time, Wang Lin's gaze fell on a small mirror, and his eyes lit up. From his observation of these 9 instruments besides this mirror, the divine sense on the other 8 wasn't something he could break at the Jidan stage. The destruction of its master's divine sense somehow messed up the divine sense that was placed on the mirror. As a result, it was not impossible to destroy the divine sense placed in this mirror. Wang Lin pondered for a while and suddenly put away the other instruments and began to take the mirror over by force. Time flew by. After 1.5 months had passed, Wang Lin walked out of the cave with his expression as calm as always. He had successfully destroyed the divine sense on the mirror and made it his 30 days ago. Then it took him 7 days to gain some basic understanding of the IT. Then, he refined it with his own fire, and after 49 days, the mirror was completely his. He felt the effect of the mirror during this period of time. The effect of this ancient mirror was really mysterious. It was similar to the ring of the chaotic broken stars. It was related to avatars. Wang Lin believed that this must have been a famous treasure a long time ago, or wouldn't tea be the life-saving treasure of an ancient cultivator? But with only Wang Lin's knowledge, he didn't know the name of this mirror. Even with the memories of the ancient god, he didn't possess much knowledge on magical treasures. After all, the ancient god's body was the best weapon. The ancient gods didn't often refine treasures, and when they did, those treasures would have unimaginable power. Even now, Wang Lin would still think about the square pyramid that 2C had thrown away. After inheriting the memories, Wang Lin held the memories to create many magical treasures. However, the amount of resources required was simply too much. Even if he were to use all of the resources in the Suzaku star system, he wouldn't even be able to refine one of them. Now, he knew the name of that square pyramid. It was called the Mysterious Star Pyramid. The function of the pyramid was to seal. If it was used properly, it would seal anything, including entire planets. This pyramid required the least amount materials out of all the treasures, but that was only relative to the other treasures. In the past month and a half, besides studying the mirror, Wang Lin had also started making the restriction flags with the inkstones. However, Wang Lin was still missing some materials for the restriction flag. The reason he left the cave was to check out the town square and try to find these materials. During this time, when he was refining the mirror, the restriction on Yunfei activated many times, and every time, Wang Lin remotely stopped it through the second devil. After such a long time, Yunfei had already given in to her fate and was even numb to it. In fact, Yunfei had left the house many times to find experts, to see if anyone could remove these restrictions, and every time she came back disappointed. All of the cultivators Yunfei found couldn't break the restriction. Everyone that saw the restriction frowned. In their view, this wasn't like any restriction used in the current cultivation world, but more like ancient restrictions. There were also some people that asked questions about the restriction, but restrictions was already an odd subject in the world of cultivation, so not many people were willing to spend the time studying it. Even though the restriction on Yunfei was really unique, no one really tried to learn more about it. Yunfei was very careful when she found people to try to break the restriction. She was afraid that she would accidentally leak information about Wang Lin and get killed by him before she managed to break the restriction. Yunfei didn't know that everything she was doing was being observed by Wang Lin through the second devil. He saw all of the things she had done and coldly laughed in his heart, thinking that she was just looking for death. Wang Lin walked out of the stone room and was about to head out of the cave to the city when the cave suddenly opened up and Yunfei walked in with a frown on her face. Wang Lin stopped, made a seal with his hand, and suddenly disappeared. After the woman entered the cave, she looked toward Wang Lin's room. There was bitterness in her eyes. Wang Lin looked at the woman. The things this woman had done already made him want to kill her. After she walked into her room, Wang Lin left the cave and went into the heart of Lin City. The inside the Lin City was very large. It contained many shops that sold all kinds of things. Walking in the city, Wang Lin met many cultivators with varying cultivation levels. The strong ones were in late Jidan stage and the weak ones were at the first or second layer of QI condensing. Wang Lin casually walked around, eyeing the shops for things he needed. Meanwhile, his divine sense was constantly connected to the second devil as he watched what Yunfei was doing. She went to the corner of her room, opened a stone slab, and took out a pill furnace, and then she put it back. She stayed in her room, not knowing what she should do. Seeing this, Wang Lin sneered in his heart. Her life was already in his hands, so he wasn't in any rush to kill her. He intended to see if there was anyone in Lin City that could break the restriction and, in a way, test how strong his restrictions had become. With this plan in mind, he kept watching her through his divine sense and also started to look for the materials he needed. While walking, Wang Lin's gaze suddenly focused onto a shop. This shop was 5 stories tall, decorated with a carving of a dragon and phoenix that released spirit powers. There was also a giant piece of white jade with 3 words carved on it: Treasure Refining Pavilion. Looking at the pavilion, Wang Lin revealed a strange smile. He remembered back to when he was in Nandu City and went to a treasure refining pavilion to exchange Dragon's skin for a pill furnace, which made many people chase after him and ended up causing a bloodbath. He ended up giving the pill furnace that caused all of this to Li Muwan. Thinking about this, an image of a gentle, weak, and fragile woman appeared in his mind. He sighed. He knew that Li Muwan liked him, but he had a blood feud that he just couldn't forget. In the cruel world of cultivation, he really couldn't have any ties, because if he caused a catastrophe again, she would be harmed because of it. After going through such an experience, Wang Lin's heart became cold. He decided to not let himself have any ties before he was strong enough to protect them. In the blink of an eye, 200 years had passed. Li Muan might not even be alive anymore. He forcibly removed Li Muan's figure from his mind. His heart became cold again as he walked into this treasure-refining pavilion. The inside of this treasure-refining pavilion wasn't all that different from the one in Nandu City, besides having one extra floor. After Wang Lin entered, he casually looked around and went up the stairs. The moment he walked into the second floor, he stopped and his gaze fell onto the left wall. On the wall hung the skin of a giant dragon. This skin was complete, so it felt like there was a living dragon in the room. On the second floor of the treasure-refining pavilion sat a girl wearing a blue silk dress. She was eating sunflower seeds when she saw Wang Lin staring at the dragon skin. She used a special technique of the pavilion to look at Wang Lin, and found him to be at the late Jidan stage. She said, with a clear and beautiful voice, "This is the most complete dragon skin our pavilion has. It is not for sale unless you have something of equal value to exchange for it." This dragon skin felt very familiar to Wang Lin, especially the way the skin was joined together. It was very similar to the one Wang Lin exchanged for the pill furnace. Wang Lin pondered for a while and asked, "I'd like to ask, where did this come from?" If Wang Lin asked when he was at the early stage of Jidan, he wouldn't have gotten an answer. But now that he was at the late stage of Jidan and close to Yuan Ying, his cultivation was high enough for the girl to answer. She chuckled and said, "Senior isn't the first person to ask where it came from. After all, getting a complete dragon skin is simply too difficult, and this dragon skin was carved off the dragon the moment it died." Wang Lin nodded. His gaze moved away from the dragon skin and onto the girl. The girl put down the sunflower seeds in her hand and sweetly smiled. To be honest, Junior doesn't know who obtained this dragon skin. This was traded in at a branch store in Nandu City outside the Sea of Devils for a pill furnace. The rumor is that the cultivator that exchanged the dragon skin died outside the Sea of Devils. From the moment that cultivator left Nandu City, he was chased by many Jidan stage experts, including a mid-stage Jidan expert. And that cultivator was only at the late stage of foundation building at the time. Originally, there wasn't anything abnormal about it as this cultivator was bound to die. But the cultivator broke through to the Jidan stage during the pursuit and turned around and killed all the cultivators chasing him. He even forced the mid-stage Jidan expert to use the 10,000 double 100 days heavenly kill order. Wang Lin's face calmly listened to all of this without any change in his expression. After the girl finished talking, he nodded and didn't ask any more about this. After walking through the pavilion, he spent 30 mid-quality spirit stones and brought the materials he needed. He then spent more spirit stones on a piece of jade that held the location of ancient transfer arrays. Then, he left without looking back once. That dragon's skin was still calmly displayed on the wall on the second floor of the pavilion. Wang Lin was very satisfied with the materials. He had all the materials he needed for the restriction flags. Truth to be told, besides the inkstone, all the other materials weren't that rare, so they were very easy to purchase. Putting the materials aside, Wang Lin wasn't very satisfied with the jade. Even in the pavilion there wasn't much information on ancient transfer arrays. Even this piece of jade only contained some scattered records of them. As for information on the G realm, Wang Lin didn't ask directly. He questioned about it indirectly, but found nothing. After returning to the cave, Yunfei was still in her stone room. After checking up on her, Wang Lin returned to his stone room and started the production of the restriction flags. His cultivation was a lot higher than Yunfei's, so when he entered, Yunfei didn't notice at all. He took out the jade that he had obtained from the second realm in the land of the ancient god, which contained the information regarding the production of the restriction flags. He looked through the jade again before crushing it in his hand. After he took out the inkstone and sent his spirit power into it, he took out the other materials and fused them together according to the instructions. Then, following the instructions of the jade, he let out an essence of blood spirit power and began the refining process. This process was called raising the device in the jade. It could be said that the process for refining the restriction flags was different from the method of refining treasures that he had learned from the War Shrine. The two methods weren't just two different systems, but two completely separate domains. The time of raising the device could be long or short, depending on the needs of the restriction flag. If one could place 999,999 restriction on the restriction flag, then it would be optimal. But in reality, restriction flags have 4 levels. These 4 levels were divided by the amount of restrictions on the flag. They were 999, 9,999, 99,999, and the final one was 999,999 restrictions. Wang Lin's first goal was 999 restrictions. Later that day, Wang Lin sat in his room, constantly moving his hand. Before him was a small white flag with 81 black dots. Wang Lin became more focused. His hand changed between many seals and suddenly pointed at the flag. The afterimage left by his hand formed an illusionary circle and landed on the white flag. The moment the restriction landed, it broke apart and reformed as a black dot on the flag. At this moment, there were 12 dots on the flag. Once there were 999 black spots on it, the creation of the lowest level of restriction flag would be complete. Wang Lin was very careful during this process. Although he had created dozens of restrictions tonight, not all of them could be successfully placed on the flag. After several attempts, Wang Lin found that the flag could only hold 9% of the same restriction at once. Once the 10th copy of a restriction was placed, the 9 before it would disappear. After resting a while, when Wang Lin was about to place the 13th restriction on the flag, he raised his head and stared at Yunfei's room. His eyes became cold. Through the second devil, Wang Lin could see that Yunfei took out the pill furnace again. This pill furnace was very old, and on it was a strip of yellow paper that let off a faint glow. She hesitated for a while, then she clenched her teeth. Instead of putting the furnace into her bag of holding, she held it in her hand and quietly walked out of her room. Outside her room, she looked at Wang Lin's room with strong hatred in her eyes, but quickly covered it up. The woman stood outside Wang Lin's room and asked, "Senior, are you there?" After she asked, she didn't move at all and waited. After about 1 hour, the woman respectfully said again, "Senior, Junior needs to go on a trip and would like to ask Senior for permission." After she finished speaking, she slowly backed up. Even when she was at the entrance of the cave, Wang Lin still didn't do anything. The woman's eyes lit up. She gently touched the door to the cave and left. During the month Wang Lin had been locked in his room, whenever the woman was going to leave, she would do this. Wang Lin sneered in the room. After she left, he stood up and followed her. This time, the woman took the pill furnace with her. There must be something important going on, and Wang Lin was also kind of curious about the pill furnace. It had to be said that when he first entered the cave, he scanned it with this divine sense and didn't find anything abnormal. Obviously, the furnace was guarded by some spell that prevented it from being detected by divine sense. Also, Wang Lin had some speculation on why she didn't put it in her bag of holding. In dreams, Leo sees his video standing in 3rd place on the popular charts. Hoping to garner more fan support, and looking for help from you all to climb even higher in the rankings this month, fog appeared in the sky and churned. It looked like a mushroom. Rumbles echoed as it spread out, covering the sky and causing the earth to darken. A powerful pressure spread out from the sky and shrouded the ground below. The earth began to tremble. If the earth had a soul, it would be trembling in fear due to the pressure. Aside from Prince Jidu and company, there were many guards in the palace. Their cultivations were not weak, and some of them had become lords with 27 stars. However, at this moment, as the pressure descended, the nearly 1,000 guards all turned pale and their bodies trembled. Popping sounds came from their bodies as if they could not bear the pressure. What did he cultivate during the last 100 years to produce such pressure? The expression of the purple-robed young man changed. Even with his cultivation level, he almost felt like he could not withstand it. As for the young woman, she could not stand up at all. She sat on the chair and sweat covered her forehead. Prince Jidu looked excited. He hadn't dared to disturb Wang Lin during the past 100 years, even when he faced a life-or-death crisis. He had gritted his teeth and endured through it, and now he could feel his godfather's, Wang Lin's, aura from this pressure. The fog in the sky continued to churn and a strange shadow appeared inside. The shadow was a red sun that gave off a burst of light. As the light spread, the fog churned and a thunderous rumble echoed. Then the fog spread endlessly. Prince Jita's palace was shrouded in this fog. The countless people inside the palace found it difficult to resist the pressure, so they remained frozen, unable to move at all. In particular, the nearly 1,000 guards in the palace, who were too close to this pressure, all trembled, and fear filled their hearts. Inside the palace, the purple-robed young man was soaked in sweat, and most of his robe was soaked, his eyes filled with horror. He had seen Grand Empyrean Song Tian, and not even before Song Tian did he feel this kind of fear. It was as if his life was under the control of this pressure. The rumors about this person from 100 years ago appeared in the mind of the purple-robed youth. The disrespect he had in his heart completely disappeared. A person who could give off this kind of pressure could compare to Grand Empyrean Song Tian. As the pressure and fog enveloped the country, far away, in the ancient Shi imperial city, there was a mountain with a large temple on top. This mountain was called Origin Mountain, and the peak of the mountain was shaped like a horn, making it seem as if the mountain was going to tear the heavens apart. The great temple was built at the end of the horn. This was the ancient Shi temple. It was one of the holy lands of the ancient Shi, second only to the ancestral temple, and where the people of the ancient Shi were taught. Normally, a large amount of people would come to visit, but today the temple was emitting a powerful pressure, preventing anyone from entering. There was a middle-aged man sitting at the other end of the horn. He was wearing a green robe, and his hair extended to his waist. He was looking into the distance, and his expression was slightly grim. Behind him, there was another person. He was a rough-looking young man with a hint of ferociousness hidden inside. However, that ferociousness was gone, and was replaced with shock as he looked into the distance. With his cultivation level, he normally would not have noticed the pressure from the distance. However, while standing behind the middle-aged man, he felt it through a strange method. "Teacher, this is the young man gasped. He saw that his teacher's expression was gloomy, and after he subconsciously spoke, he immediately swallowed his words. Aside from Wang Lin, who charged into the ancient Dao palace, killed the ancient Dao emperor, came to my ancient Shi, and chose to serve your brother, who else can it be?" There was a flash of coldness in the middle-aged man's eyes. After hearing the name Wang Lin, the rough-looking youth gasped, and after pondering a bit, he suddenly spoke. "Teacher still hasn't chosen disciple as the emperor because of this person." The middle-aged man coldly snorted. "Your teacher has seen this Wang Lin once before, when Xuan Luo brought him here. His cultivation is not weak, and his combat power is extraordinary, but he is still not worthy of my attention. The reason he could break into the ancient Dao palace and retreat is because Xuan Luo didn't act. He killed the ancient Dao emperor, but Grand Empyrean Gu Dao didn't say a word. This matter is most puzzling, and is the reason your teacher hasn't chosen a future emperor in a hurry. The person who your teacher cares about is not that person, but Grand Empyrean Gu Dao. As for that person, he is not worthy of my consideration." The middle-aged man looked into the distance and faintly felt the pressure. He was the ancient Shi's Grand Empyrean Song Tian, and the youth behind him was the prince, Shi Man. The youth let out a sigh of relief and then asked, after hesitating a bit, "Teacher, Wang Lin coming out of closed-door cultivation after 100 years means that his cultivation level has increased, or else he wouldn't be able to release such pressure." The middle-aged man didn't speak, but his pupils shrank an undetectable amount. He pondered for a while longer before he spoke. "He is fusing his essence true bodies. His essence true bodies are extraordinary, and he wants to fully integrate them, but it will be very difficult. However, he has decided to stay in the ancient Shi and fuse his essence true bodies without notifying me first. He is not giving me any face, and he is getting involved in the competition for the ancient Shi emperor. I'll have to teach him a lesson." Although the middle-aged man was worried about Grand Empyrean Gu Dao, he was still a Grand Empyrean. He was also the ancient Shi guardian, and had the right to deal with anything he believed to be a threat to the ancient Shi. There was a flash of coldness in his eyes, and the middle-aged raised his right hand. He formed a seal and pointed toward the direction of the pressure Wang Lin was releasing. "Release the seal." As he muttered this, there was a flash of ghostly light on his right hand. At the same time, at the center of the ancient clan, at Mount Gudao, a figure covered in fog was sitting at the top of the tower. The figure opened his eyes and looked toward the direction of the ancient Shi. After a long time, the figure muttered to himself, "Essence true body fusion?" His words were calm and didn't show any hint of emotion. As the fog shrouded Prince Jidu's palace, a sun appeared in the sky, and the world soon changed colors and turned into night. In a short period of time, the sky alternated between night and day. After 9 times, lines appeared inside the fog and formed symbols. Each of them contained the power of the restriction essence. Several hours slowly passed. During these several hours, more and more restrictions appeared, and the alternation of night and day became even more frequent, but there was no sign of fusion. There were even signs of instability. As the night and day alternated, the sky began to weaken, and even the large amount of restrictions showed signs of disappearing. Just at this moment, a shocking howl echoed as 5 rays of light flew out of the palace. It was impossible to see what was inside the 5 lights, but they gathered into one in the sky to form a shadow. The shadow looked exactly like Wang Lin. However, it was not Wang Lin's original body, but his 5-element true body. It floated there like an illusion and was only the size of an ordinary person. However, he inhaled, and the power of the world rushed toward him like crazy. Then the 5-element true body expanded until it was 1,000 feet tall. This power of the world was the power of the 5 elements of the world. The 1,000-foot true body inhaled once more. The earth trembled, heavenly fire appeared, a rainy haze followed, the grass withered, and even the heavenly metal moved. The power of the 5 elements were inhaled into his mouth. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the 1,000 feet shadow expanded once more into a 10,000-foot giant. The 10,000-foot 5-element true body spread out his arms. At the same time, the alternating of day and night became smooth, and the restrictions no longer showed signs of dissipating. However, just as restriction, absolute beginning, and absolute end showed signs of stabilizing, a brutal roar came from the depths of the earth. This howl contained madness and shocking power. It caused the hearts of all the ancient Shi members to tremble and panic. The moment the roar echoed, Prince Jidu inside the palace trembled and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Shock appeared in his eyes. "It's Luo." The young man in purple turned pale. When he heard about Luo Ho, he thought about a rumor about Prince Jidu. It was rumored that when this prince was born, there was a heavenly sign, only it was a vicious sign. It was concealed by the royal family and dispelled by the imperial teacher. Not many people knew about it, but during the last 100 years, for some unknown reason, the rumor began to spread again in the ancient Shi. Rumor had it that the reason Prince Jidu had built his palace in the Luohu country was that the fierce beast sealed under this country was the Luohu. As for why Jidu was here, he played a role in suppressing the Luohu and could also nourish himself on the Luohu's aura. This was something arranged by the imperial teacher before he died. The roar became even more intense. Shortly after, a giant shadow appeared in the distance. It was a round meatball that only had a huge eye. It revealed ferociousness and madness, and its body was illusory. At this moment, it stared at Wang Lin's 5-element true body above the palace. There was a flash of greed on its eyes. This round meatball was the Luohu? From yesterday until now, Leo has only slept for 2 hours, can't take it anymore. Today there's only the first watch. Leo wants to catch up on sleep. After the salon ends, the missing chapters will be compensated. The round meatball's body was illusory, and after it appeared, it was surrounded by black gas. It let out a howl and flew toward Wang Lin's 5-element true body. As it approached, its howl became even more sharp. Just as it closed in, Wang Lin was still sitting inside the secret chamber, and his right hand was still raised. In his right hand sat a small person who was also cultivating. Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. After 100 years of time, Wang Lin was not the same as before. His expression was calm, and the moment he opened his eyes, the little person in his right palm also opened its eyes. Its eyes were filled with intelligence, and there was a flash of divination in them. In Wang Lin's palm, the little person knelt down and kowtowed toward him. After 9 kowtows, Wang Lin closed his right palm, and the little person disappeared without a trace. "The soul I Dao is indeed mysterious," Wang Lin muttered as he looked up and revealed a sneer. 20 years ago, I used this spell to divinate a chance to completely fuse my Slaughter Thunder Essence true body. After countless tries, I found that I needed the soul of a ferocious beast. However, this soul will give me a chance to completely fuse this Slaughter Thunder Essence true body. I divinated that on the day that I try to fuse my essence true bodies, someone will personally deliver it. This soul indeed came. Wang Lin raised his hand and pointed at the sky. With this, the entire sky changed drastically. The alternation of day and night suddenly stopped, and even the countless restrictions stopped flickering. Even the five-element true body stopped. The Luo Huo that had been roaring and had rushed over suddenly paused and even stopped roaring. It seemed to be frozen in place, and while its eye was still ferocious, even this ferociousness seemed to be frozen. Stop spell! When used with Wang Lin's current cultivation level, its power was shocking. When the Luo Huo was stopped, the alternation of day and night returned to normal, the restriction essence true body recovered, and the five-element true body recovered. Immediately after, the countless restrictions rushed into the stopped Luo Huo and entered its illusory body. Endless light flashed, and after absorbing all the restrictions, it shrank a bit. The ferociousness dissipated and was replaced by an illusory figure. This figure was blurry, but it soon condensed into Wang Lin. This figure that looked exactly like Wang Lin revealed a smile and walked out of the eye. As it stood there, it released a powerful restriction essence aura. This was the restriction essence true body Wang Lin had formed by borrowing the power of this fierce beast. At the same time, the rising sun shot out from the alternating sky and entered the illusory body of the Luo Huo. The Luo Huo's body shrank once more, and another human-shaped shadow appeared. The shadow shined brightly like the sun and smiled as it formed. It walked out from the eye and stood next to the restriction essence. This body was the absolute beginning true body Wang Lin had condensed over the last 100 years by using his flowing time spell, combined with the Dao Wang clan's ability to create their own world. The purpose of this was to recreate countless cycles of day and night. Shortly after, the absolute end essence, which represented the dark night, flew out into the eye. The body of the Luo Huo shrank to only half its original size when the third essence true body walked out. Absolute end essence true body. Over the past 100 years, Wang Lin had used flowing time and the Dao Wang clan's spell to strengthen his absolute beginning and absolute end essences to the point of forming an essence true body. However, he could not fully integrate these special essences, so he had divinated and decided to borrow the power of the Luo Huo to attempt it. The 5 true essence bodies all absorbed the soul of the fierce beast. They were borrowing the mutual attraction of the beast's soul to try to integrate together. Inside the secret chamber, after Wang Lin's restriction, absolute beginning, and absolute end essence true bodies had appeared. A strange lightning spread across his body. Another overlapping shadow appeared as his slaughter thunder essence true body flew up into the sky from the secret chamber. When the slaughter thunder essence true body flew into the sky, the black thunder spread out, creating a thunderous rumble. After 100 years of nourishment and a second refining, this slaughter thunder and I have become inseparable. There are no more signs of it defecting. The slaughter essence has also reached the point of forming an essence true body. Whether all 5 true bodies can fuse into one will depend on this. Wang Lin's expression was serious, as his hands formed seals and his powerful divine sense shrouded the world. The slaughter thunder body rushed toward the sealed Luo Huo and entered its body. The Luo Huo's body trembled violently and shrank rapidly until it disappeared, leaving behind only the huge eye. The eye was dim, and from a distance, it looked like an egg. After one incensed stick of time, countless cracks appeared on it until it exploded. Then wolf figures walked out. One was the Thunder Essence True Body, which had formed an Essence True Body a long time ago. The other had a head of black hair. It was the cold and indifferent Slaughter Essence True Body. After this Essence True Body appeared, it calmly looked at the sky and a shocking aura spread out. This was a destructive aura that represented destruction and slaughter. "I am Slaughter," the black-haired Wang Lin muttered. He lowered his head, and his gaze swept past everyone. When the guards on the ground were swept by the gaze, they all let out miserable screams. This was not because of pain or death, but from fear. A sense of fear that came from the soul. Inside the hall, the purple-robed young man trembled, and his mind was filled with fear. Even Prince Jidu was trembling, filled with fear. "I am called Slaughter." The black-haired Wang Lin looked up and roared at the sky, but at this moment a cold snort came from the palace. When the cold snort entered the ears of the black-haired Wang Lin, his roar stopped. His face revealed pain and madness. Taking advantage of this moment, the Thunder Essence True Body flew toward the black-haired Wang Lin and fused with him. This caused the black thunder in the area to lash out. Shortly after, the restriction essence true body eyes shined, and his body turned into countless restrictions. He created a restriction storm and fused with the black-haired Wang Lin's body. At the same time, the absolute beginning and absolute end essence true bodies both silently walked out. They turned into a two rays of light, black and white, and fused with the black-haired Wang Lin. "I am called Slaughter." The black-haired Wang Lin's grunts turned into a roar. 4 overlapping shadows appeared, seeming as if he was going to force the true bodies out of him. "No one can control me, I am Slaughter." As he roared, the overlapping shadows in his body were pushed out several inches. This looked very mysterious. A second cold snore came out. The black-haired Wang Lin trembled, and at the same time the 5-element true body appeared in the sky. The 5-element true body shrank and waved his hand. A huge palm of 5-element energy pressed down on the black-haired Wang Lin. "I slow." The black-haired Wang Lin looked up and released a destructive force. Just as he was about to struggle, a powerful pressure appeared around him. This pressure contained a powerful divine sense that pressed down on him. Also at this moment, the shadow of a Luohuo appeared behind the black-haired Wang Lin. This Luohuo shadow was in pieces, but countless black threads appeared and the pieces began to fuse. The overlapping shadows around the black-haired Wang Lin no longer spread out, but fused together. "Because you are my second true body, you are Slaughter. From now on, you will replace me in hunting down my enemies. You will spread my destructive intent and kill those that seek to harm me. Your name is Slaughter, and you Dao name is Punishment." A powerful voice echoed in the world, and the Luohuo shadow behind the black-haired Wang Lin completely fused. The other 4 overlapping shadows also fully integrated and are now one. The pressure dissipated, and the world returned to normal. The black-haired Wang Lin was still black-haired. He stood there and slowly raised his head. "I am Punishment, Slaughter." This voice was calm and extremely cold. There was no emotion within, only indifference to the extreme. He represented Wang Lin's slaughter and destruction, which would make the heavens and earth tremble. It would make Wang Lin's enemies no fear. As he raised his head, his cold gaze looked into the distance and seemed to be able to cross endless distances. His gaze directly fell on tip of the Horn of Origin Mountain, on the shocked Song Tian. Not good. Song Tian's body trembled and he gasped. He subconsciously stood up and his expression changed. He grabbed Chi Man and flew into the air before the horn he was sitting on collapsed. Aimlessly wishing for the like button for the video. In the Luohuo continent, after a part of the Luohuo's soul was devoured by Wang Lin, Prince Ji-Du coughed out a large mouthful of blood inside the hall. After he coughed out this mouthful of blood, an invisible seal inside his body collapsed and was broken. Prince Ji-Du's eyes revealed a strange light, and he could feel a power awakening inside his body. This power filled his body and made him close his eyes. Outside the temple, the black-haired Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from Origin Mountain. His gaze was extremely cold and ruthless. Beside him was Wang Lin's 5-element true body. Although these two true bodies looked the same, the feeling they each gave off was completely different. The 5-element true body represented Wang Lin's life of cultivation. It would give people a gentle but powerful pressure of someone strong. The slaughter essence true body represented Wang Lin's life of slaughter. It would make one's heart feel cold and not dare to get close. A moment later, a calm voice came from the secret chamber and echoed across the world. "True body return." The 5-element true body looked down at the secret chamber and turned into a ray of 5-colored light that disappeared into the earth. As for the slaughter essence true body, it also didn't hesitate at all. Its black hair and black robe fluttered in the air as it slowly walked toward the earth. Its body turned into black strands and dissipated. Inside the secret chamber, Wang Lin sat down. The 5-element true body and slaughter essence true body were standing before him. He looked at the two essence true bodies with a solemn expression. 100 years of cultivation to finally form this slaughter essence true body. I wonder if my cultivation take a step past peak void tribulent after it fuses with my original body. If my cultivation level can increase again, perhaps I can completely expel the ancestral curse in the celestial emperor's soul and take control of it. Wang Lin took a deep breath and drew his gaze from his true bodies. He looked at the soul being burned by his soul fire in the middle of the room. Over these past 100 years of refining, the gray color of decay had been condensed into the size of a baby's fist, but it could not be expelled completely. My cultivation path is completely different from that of others. After peak void tribulant, there are Empyrean exalts and ascendant Empyreans. But these were added by others, and in reality, both are part of peak void tribulant. And every time my cultivation level increases, it is based on the division of realms. Wang Lin was suddenly filled with expectation. He wanted to know what his cultivation level would be after taking a step past peak void tribulant. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with excitement as he muttered, Grand Empyrean, or would it be? Or would it be the fourth step? But does the fourth step really exist in this world? Could the ancient ancestor and celestial ancestor have been at the fourth step? Wang Lin's eyes shined and he felt expectation in his heart. He raised his right hand and the five-element true body walked forward. It overlapped with Wang Lin and completely fused with him. When the five-element true body returned, Wang Lin's white hair flowed without any wind and his cultivation erupted. At this instant, he reached peak void tribulant, and after 100 years of closed-door cultivation, he was filled with power. This was him in peak condition. Looking at the black-haired slaughter essence true body, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and revealed a decisive gaze. He pointed at the slaughter essence true body, and the true body looked up at him with its indifferent gaze as it walked over. In the blink of an eye, the slaughter essence true body closed in on Wang Lin. It didn't stop until it started overlapping with him. It overlapped with Wang Lin completely, and then they began to slowly fuse. As the fusion went on, confusion gradually appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. At the same time, his cultivation level increased at an indescribable rate, and the world changed colors. Wang Lin's cultivation seemed to have broken through a bottleneck and was still rapidly ascending toward a mysterious realm. During this process, his cultivation level instantly surpassed the so-called Empyrean Exalt stage, and soon climbed to the so-called Ascendant Empyrean stage. This continued with no sign of stopping. Wang Lin's eyes became even more confused, as if he was going to lose his mind. Everything felt like an illusion. As his cultivation level continued to increase, it went beyond Ascendant Empyrean, rising toward another boundary. This was the boundary of a Grand Empyrean. After an unknown amount of time, the Slaughter Thunder Essence True Body and Wang Lin were almost fully fused, though a bit of overlapping remained. It looked like they were about to fuse completely. Wang Lin's eyes released a silver light and were filled with confusion. Finally, he felt a rumble in his mind and felt like his soul had left his body. His soul left his body, left the chamber, and appeared in the sky. The sky was not blue and there was no sun, moon, or stars. At this moment, only Wang Lin's soul existed. He looked down on the earth to find that it was covered in a white fog. This made it so he could not see the earth. He looked at the sky. The sky was obscured by thin lines that seemed to contain their own laws. This is the sky. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with confusion. He could not see the sky, only the fine lines. Even when he used his full power, he could only see countless fine lines without any end. With confusion in his eyes, Wang Lin wanted to fly out. He had a vague feeling that if he could step out of these endless lines, he could take the step past peak void tribulant. This step would be an ascension, a metamorphosis where one break out of their shell and transform into a butterfly. This feeling was extremely strong, as if it came from the depths of his soul. After silently pondering for a moment, Wang Lin suddenly looked up. Although his eyes were filled with confusion, there was even more determination. He charged at the endless fine lines. He moved very fast. Even though he could not feel it clearly, he rushed into the sea of fine lines. He allowed the lines to surround him, but he continued forward. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Lin saw a bridge appear before him in this endless sea of fine lines. To be more accurate, this wasn't T1 bridge, but 9 bridges. After this bridge, there was one that looked like a rainbow, and after that there was another rainbow-like bridge. They expanded into the vast space and gave off an ancient aura that made it seem like they had existed since the world was born. After the distant 9th bridge, there was an illusory image that looked like another world, and he could vaguely see a few figures inside. However, when Wang Lin took a closer look, he couldn't see a thing. It was completely blurry. Heaven-trampling bridge, Wang Lin muttered to himself. Then he looked at a huge stone tablet before the first bridge. There were 3 large words engraved on this stone tablet. These words were very strange. Wang Lin had never seen them before, but the moment he looked at them, the meaning of these words appeared in his mind. On the stone tablet, aside from these 3 words, there was a row of smaller words. Wang Lin silently looked over. Trample the heavenly path, void extinction Tao, immortal soul worshipped by all. Wang Lin went into a trance. He vaguely remembered that if there was still a 4th step, its name was heaven trampling. After standing outside the first bridge for a long time, the confusion in Wang Lin's eyes disappeared. His eyes shined brightly and he walked toward the first bridge. Step by step, the first bridge looked very close, but it took a few hours to get there. When Wang Lin was before the first bridge, he finally saw the entirety of it. This bridge was an illusion without any substance. It could be seen but couldn't be felt by divine sense. The ancient aura coming from it was not something that could be created by humans. Heaven-trampling bridge. Wang Lin raised his right hand to touch the bridge, but his hand easily went through it. He was startled for a moment, and he carefully looked at his right hand. There were some crystal-clear particles of light in his hand. Each particle contained powerful vitality, and they all flew back toward the first bridge. Wang Lin closed his eyes and stood there for half an incense stick of time. He suddenly opened his eyes and raised his foot to talk toward the first heaven-trampling bridge. The moment he stepped onto the bridge, he could clearly feel that his soul body was undergoing a transformation, as if a large amount of laws of the world had become clear to him. He had never felt this before, and he stood motionless on the bridge. After a long time, Wang Lin let out a deep breath and looked at the bridge with a strange gaze. He stepped forward step by step. When he arrived at the end of the first bridge, the changes in the law of the world had been engraved in his heart and could not be erased. Looking at the distance, the vague, illusory picture at the end of the 9th bridge became a bit more clear. It seemed to be a beautiful place, but the human figures were still blurry. He couldn't even tell how many people there were. While silently pondering, Wang Lin walked down from the bridge and went toward the second heaven-trampling bridge. He had a strong feeling that if he could walk past all 9 bridges and see the illusory scene at the end, he could break past the 3rd step and enter the legendary heaven-trampling realm. Wishing for the like button for the video. The first and second bridges looked very close, but Wang Lin flew for several days before he arrived at the second bridge. This bridge was several times larger than the first bridge. Wang Lin didn't hesitate to step onto the second bridge. The moment his foot landed, his soul body trembled as if it was going to collapse. It was as if his cultivation wasn't qualified to step on this bridge. A rumble echoed and Wang Lin felt his mind explode and the world seemed to spin. His divine sense and soul seemed to separate. He vaguely saw that there was a continent below the fog, and it was very familiar. On the left side there were 72 continents, and on the right there were 36 countries. At the center was a vast basin where the sea was rotating rapidly. In the depths of the sea, he saw 9 large pillars connected to form the shape of a door. The door was closed and not opened. Heaven trampling, am I heaven trampling right now? Wang Lin could not feel his own existence as he looked at the earth below. He silently pondered as he looked toward the direction of the celestial clan. The 72 continents suddenly changed into 72 souls roaring at the sky. This included the heavenly bull, green devil scorpion, and many of the sealed beasts he had read about. The beasts seemed to notice Wang Lin's gaze, and they all roared. Wang Lin could clearly feel their fear, but he could also feel the other intent behind the fear. At the same time as when Wang Lin entered the legendary realm after Void Tribulent, the continents in the celestial clan began to tremble. This trembling increased and could be felt by all the cultivators. They were all confused and didn't know what was happening. However, on any continent with a suppression temple, the temple was the center of the trembling. The trembling became even more intense and caught the attention of the powerful people of the celestial clan. They flew into the air in shock and looked at the earth to see the respective souls of their continents show signs of instability. The earth trembled violently and the incredible scene of them appearing occurred. On the Heavenly Bull continent, a giant heavenly bull appeared and shrouded the entire continent, roaring toward the sky. Its eyes were filled with excitement and fear, but even more so a plea. It was pleading to the strange existence it felt in the sky so it would be free. Along with the heavenly bull, even more of the 72 souls suppressed in the celestial clan appeared one after another. Even some of those that had been rumored to be dead souls appeared. Although their figures were a blue, The fearful pleading toward the sky was equally shocking. Almost all the cultivators in the celestial clan saw this heaven-shattering scene. They were in a dance and panic. The earth trembled even more violently as the souls that appeared continued to roar, and it looked like a calamity was going to descend. What happened? Inside the Dao Yi sect, Grand Empyrean Dao Yi flew into the sky, and his expression was gloomy. There was even a trace of panic on his face. With his cultivation level, he could clearly feel this shocking events taking place across all continents in the celestial clan. He stared ahead at the towering tree coming from the mountain sea continent. The tree moved and let out sharp roars. Dao Yi looked at the giant tree and gasped, "Damn it, wasn't that foreign monster tree dead? Why is the soul still there? What happened? Could there be a problem with Lian Daofei who is suppressing them under the palace?" At the same time, in the northern continent, Wu Feng looked at the ice giant with a gloomy expression and a trace of horror. In the purple Yang sect, Grand Empyrean Gemini flew out, looked at the earth, and frowned. In the ancestral city, Grand Empyrean Judi stood on top of Mount Emperor. He looked at the earth and his expression remained the same, but the contraction of his pupils revealed his shock. Behind Judi, Haizi opened her eyes. There is no problem with the underground palace, and Lian Daofei is still sleeping. He continues to suppress the 72 souls. Did you divinate the result? What exactly happened? Even those who have been pretending to be dead howled as if they sensed something. Jude's voice was cold, but there was a trace of fear in his heart. He looked up at the sky but could not see anything. However, the 72 souls were clearly pleading toward the sky. Haizi silently pondered, and her hands formed seals. A small person appeared in her right palm and started to kowtow toward her. However, Haizi's eyebrows were locked and she found nothing. Her eyes lit up as she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood fell on the small person, and the little person was immediately covered in blood. It let out a miserable scream as it continued to kowtow toward Haizi. This time, Haizi's body trembled, and she staggered back as her face turned pale. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. They felt a heaven-trampling gaze looking down upon them from above the immortal astral continent. What? Judi's expression changed, and he could no longer hide his emotions. He looked up at the sky sharply, and he felt his hair stand up. Aside from the sky, he could not see anything, but he could imagine a gaze looking down on the immortal astral continent at this moment, perhaps even looking at him. Heaven trampling this Judi's body trembled, and his cultivation seemed to go out of control. He went from an old man to middle-aged, then back to an old man. This was enough to show the shock in his heart. Wang Lin looked at the celestial clan, at the 72 souls filled with fear but crying in plea. He also saw the shock of Dao Yi, the horror of Wu Feng, the confusion of Gemini, and the gaze from Judi. He saw them, but they could not feel his existence. When Wang Lin looked down on the ancestral city, his gaze swept by Judi. This was also when Judi looked up and felt his hair stand up. He saw Haizi, he saw Lian Daofei, who had turned into a mountain under the palace. On top of Mount Emperor, Judi's expression became pale, then he flew into the sky and bowed. Junior Zhou Luoju greets Senior. If Senior has any requests, Junior will do as Senior commands. Ever since he had become a Grand Empyrean, he had never bowed to anyone like this. However, at this moment, he was filled with fear, and he respectfully bowed at the sky. However, he didn't get any reply until the 72 souls' cries became despair. Their pleading became stronger, to the point where they finally dissipated. The earth no longer trembled, and Haizi spoke softly. That person has left. When Judi heard this, he still remained bowing for another incense stick of time before he got up and descended with a pale expression. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from the celestial clan. When he saw the heavenly bull and Lian Daofei, he wanted to save them, but he could not. While silently pondering, he looked toward the ancient clan. When he looked over, an uproar similar to the celestial clan was occurring at the ancient clan. The earth trembled as the 36 souls in the countries all appeared. This included the Luohuo that had part of its soul devoured by Wang Lin. The Luohuo appeared completely. Its head was a giant meatball shaped like a cultivation planet. Its tail was like a dragoness tail, and there wasn't only one but 9. It howled at the sky as it pled for help. Xuan Luo awakened from his closed-door cultivation. He looked at what was happening and gasped. The ancient Xianxia stared at the changes in the countries and was dumbfounded. Could this be related to that Wang Lin? Impossible. Such a shocking scene can possibly be related to that person. In the ancient Ji, the mysterious Grand Empyrean was in his closed-door cultivation location and gloomily felt this change. Wang Lin saw all of this, and his gaze finally fell on Mount Gudao. He looked at the top of the tower, and the figure covered in fog. A sigh came from the figure. He opened his eyes, which were completely calm. When he looked up at the sky, he seemed to see Wang Lin's gaze. The moment their gazes met, Wang Lin felt that the strongest person in the immortal astral continent had indeed seen him. The figure inside the fog slowly said, "You've finally reached this level. Which bridge are you on now?" Wang Lin silently pondered and then sent out a divine sense. "The second bridge." "What about you?" With his current cultivation level, he still could not see Grand Empyrean Gudao's appearance. "Many years ago I passed the 5th bridge and was stopped at the 6th bridge." Wang Lin calmly asked, "Is the 4th step beyond the 9th bridge?" The figure inside the fog whispered, "I don't know. Throughout the ages, no one has passed the 9th bridge." "No one? What about the ancient ancestor and celestial ancestor?" "They all passed the 8th bridge and stopped on the 9th bridge." "What kind of place is this heaven-trampling bridge?" Wang Lin asked about his doubt. "The immortal astral continent is very large, but outside the immortal astral continent, there are many more continents. From what I understand, the heaven-trampling bridge is a common path for all living beings." Grand Empyrean Gudao sighed. There was a hint of confusion in his words. Perhaps not even he himself was sure about this. Wang Lin silently pondered and slowly withdrew his gaze. Wishing for the like button for the video, hoping to double the likes on the video. In the meantime, everyone, throw your spare ones here. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from the heaven-trampling scene. The last thing he looked at was the vast sea between the Celestial Clan and Ancient Clan, mainly the 9 pillars that form the door to the immemorial God realm. However, even with his cultivation level, he still could not clearly see the immemorial God realm. It was as if the immemorial God realm was far beyond Wang Lin's current abilities. Wang Lin gazed at the stormy sea, and after a long time, he closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, his gaze disappeared from the immortal astral continent. When he opened his eyes, again he was still in this unknown place and on the huge 2nd bridge. However, when he looked down, he found that although he was still on the 2nd bridge, he was almost on the other side now. It was as if everything from before had taken place in the few moments it had taken him to cross the bridge. It was impossible to distinguish if it was a dream or reality. Looking at the heaven-trampling bridge, looking at the 3rd, 4th until the 9th bridge, and looking at the blurry image beyond the 9th bridge, he couldn't help but feel like it was all so far away. Even his heart felt distant, as if the bridges represented an unattainable peak that made anyone who looked at it want to stop. The moment this thought surfaced, it amplified infinitely until it filled Wang Lin's body. It was as if a voice was telling him to turn back and leave this place, to stop and not attempt to cross the remaining 7 bridges. Wang Lin stood at the edge of the 2nd bridge. He only needed to take 1 step to walk down the 2nd bridge to completely cross it. However, after a long time, he still seemed unable to take the last step. Time slowly passed for a long time. Wang Lin still stood there and calmly looked ahead. He let out a sigh as he raised his right foot and stepped past the 2nd heaven-trampling bridge. Is it to question oneself if one's heart were not strong, if one didn't have a heaven-defying will, if one didn't have the persistence to go on, perhaps they would have retreated on that step? Wang Lin murmured to himself as he walked toward the 3rd bridge. The 3rd bridge was very far and very close, but Wang Lin walked for 3 days and he still didn't arrive at the bridge. He walked for 3 more days and it was the same. 3 more days passed, and the bridge still looked very far and very close. On the 9th day, Wang Lin stopped. After pondering for a moment, he suddenly looked up. His eyes revealed a strange gaze, and then he slowly closed them. He didn't need to look with his divine sense or his eyes. He sealed his vision and divine sense so he wouldn't look at the direction or location of the 3rd bridge. He then casually walked forward. He walked forward step by step, and on the 9th step, he heard the sound of birds chirping around him. The soft light seemed to penetrate his eyelids. He smelled the aroma of earth and also that familiar breath and aura. It was the smell of wood chips and the spiciness of tobacco. His steps stopped. Taiju. How is your studying? Taiju, you have to study well. Next year will be the county exam. Whether you will have a future or not will depend on it. Don't he end up like me, who is stuck in this village for life. Enough, you keep nagging him every day. I say our Taiju can definitely pass the exam. These were the voices of his father and mother. These voices seemed to cross thousands of years to reach Wang Lin's years. They were so real and seemed to bring Wang Lin back to the quiet mountain village from thousands of years ago. Wang Lin silently stood there and listened to the voices of his father and mother. Tears unconsciously flowed down from his eyes. There was a voice echoing in his heart, telling him to open his eyes to look at his father and mother. However, at the same time, Wang Lin also knew that if he opened his eyes, he would stop on the third heaven-trampling bridge. The first bridge fused the law of the world into one's origin soul. The second bridge allowed one to get the view of heaven trampling, but questioned whether their heart was strong enough. Wang Lin hadn't understood the question at the end of the second bridge at first, and was hesitant, but now he understood. This third bridge was likely one's inner demons. If one's heart was determined and their life could flash by, while their heart remained calm, then they would be able to walk past the third bridge. But once that person opened their eyes, they would need to face their inner demons, face their own life. As a result, the chances of passing the third bridge would infinitely decrease. The voices of his mother and father were still beside his ears as tears flowed down Wang Lin's face, and he didn't hesitate at all to open his eyes. Before him, he saw the familiar house, familiar yard, familiar table, and the familiar food on the table. He saw his father, who was emptying his pipe on the side. He saw his father's wrinkled face and stern eyes, but also the gentle affection behind those stern eyes. He saw his mother walk out with the freshly cooked food from the house. There were some white hairs on her head. There weren't many, and were mostly hidden by her black hair, but Wang Lin saw them. His mother might not have been beautiful to outsiders, but in Wang Lin's heart, his mother was the most beautiful woman and forever a shelter from the wind in his heart. Looking at his father and mother in the familiar scenes, although tears were flowing down, he smiled. He watched everything before him slowly dissipate into the void. He knew it was all fake, but he still had to take a look. When the scene broke, Wang Lin was still standing below the second bridge and was far from the third bridge. His father and mother were not cultivators, and mortals couldn't be resurrected. For them, the best place to be was the reincarnation cycle. However, Wang Lin's memories were eternal, and he will not erase them, as they were more important than his life. If Wan had appeared, would I have opened my eyes even though I knew it was fake? But when father and mother appeared, even though I knew it was fake, I still opened my eyes, Wang Lin muttered to himself. Who decided that one must close their eyes when facing the memories of their past and ignore these memories while maintaining a firm heart to not be affected by one's inner demons? Who decided that one must have a firm Tao heart to pass the third bridge? Who determined this was the only method of crossing this bridge? Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Family, love, and friendship are the most important things in my life. Why do I need to close my eyes? I want to keep my eyes open and see it all. I will open up my Tao heart and accommodate everything. Wang Lin took a deep breath and walked forward again. After 9 steps, he saw his parents again, and after 9 more steps, he saw Mu Bingmei, Li Qianmei, and Li Muwan. 9 more steps, and he saw Wang Ping. He saw the poor child pull his clothes and seriously asked him to cultivate. He wanted to accompany his father for life. He didn't want to leave this world and leave his father alone. If his father was going to be alone, he hoped that his presence would exist beside his father. Wang Lin saw Si Tunan, Qing Shuai, Dun Tian, the old vermilion bird, and a lot of people who had helped him. He looked at them with his eyes opened and walked forward. Big Head, Red Butterfly, Qing Shuang, Zhou Ru, Qing Lin, and many more people. Wang Lin seemed to recall his entire life as these people appeared. Along the way, Wang Lin didn't control his emotions. He cried, smiled, felt pain, felt sadness. He continued to walk forward for a long time. He didn't know when he had stepped onto the third bridge, but when he arrived at the end of the third bridge, everything disappeared. He stood there inside. He looked back for a long time before he walked off the third bridge. The fourth bridge was far away, and even further away. The illusion at the end of the 9th bridge had become a bit more clear. Wang Lin still could not see through the fog, but he could vaguely tell that there were 2 people inside. Wang Lin walked forward with the memories he had just recalled and all the emotions he felt. A few days later, he arrived before the fourth heaven trampling bridge. This bridge was even larger than the ones before it, like a huge behemoth in this space. A hint of pressure spread out, shrouding the area. Wang Lin looked at this bridge, and after pondering a bit, he raised his foot. However, when his foot landed, it penetrated the bridge and stepped onto nothing. At the same time, the fourth bridge suddenly trembled before Wang Lin and turned into countless specks of light. The specks of light all rushed toward him and formed a giant vortex that devoured Wang Lin's figure. The moment Wang Lin was devoured, in the secret chamber in Prince Jidu's palace, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with confusion for a long time, and it lingered. His slaughter essence true body had fully integrated with his body, and there was no longer an overlapping shadow. The ethereal essences were floating before him, and the celestial emperor's soul was still surrounded by his soul fire. The secret chamber was silent. Only Wang Lin's slightly rough breathing slowly echoed. Trample the heavenly path, void extinction Tao, immortal soul, worshipped by all. I only crossed 3 of the 9 heaven-trampling bridges and stopped. Wang Lin took a deep breath and looked up. The confusion in his eyes dissipated and was replaced by determination. Wishing for the like button for the video. Thinking nonsense, wishing for the like button for the video. When Wang Lin opened his eyes inside the secret room, the figure covered in fog on top of the tower on Mount Gudao let out a sigh. There are 400 years. At the Celestial Clan, the 72 souls had calmed down after howling and begging at the sky. However, only Grand Empyrean Judi knew what had happened, and his heart was disturbed. He was cultivating, but he constantly looked at the sky with awe and longing in his eyes. In his entire life, he longed for that legendary realm, but he still could not take that step. The reason Grand Empyrean Gudao is the strongest Grand Empyrean must be because he has taken that step. I don't know when I'll be able to as well. Judi remained silent, and he had a complicated expression for a long time, before he let out a long sigh. On Mount Emperor, Iz was standing at the top of the mountain in a white dress. Her clothes danced in the wind and there was hesitation and confusion in her eyes. During the previous divination, she felt a sense of familiarity. She hadn't told Judi about this, as even she felt like it was just an illusion. In the ancient clan, on Origin Mountain, outside the ancient Shi imperial capital, Grand Empyrean Song Tian's face was pale. He looked into the distance with a complicated gaze, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Teacher Chiman's hesitant voice came from behind him. Shut up for me. Song Tian didn't turn around and interrupted Chiman's words. He didn't want to listen to anything right now. He had to think about whether the upheaval in the countries was related to Wang Lin. Although he didn't think there was a connection, there was a small chance that it was Wang Lin. In the case, he would need to change his decision-making and thought process. Forget it, I'll go meet him and find out. A moment later, Song Tian's eyes lit up and he raised his right hand. As he pointed at the sky, a thunderous rumble echoed and power gathered from all sides. When the clouds scattered, a huge rift was torn open in the sky. A giant head came out of the rift. This head was green and had 2 horns. It was an ancient devil. Large amounts of black gas surrounded the ancient devil, and as it roared, 2 large claws came out of the rift. It tore the rift open even wider, and its whole body walked out. Its body was 100,000 feet tall, and after it walked out, it let out a roar before kneeling down before Song Tian. Staring at the giant ancient devil before him, Song Tian's eyes lit up. His left hand touched his forehead, and a ray of green light shot out toward the ancient devil and disappeared between its eyebrows. Song Tian sat down with his eyes closed, but the ancient devil's eyes revealed a monstrous light. It had a gloomy expression as it moved back into the rift and disappeared. The moment the ancient devil disappeared, Wang Lin let out a deep breath in the Luohuo country. His eyes were filled with determination, and after he checked his body's cultivation level, he frowned a moment later. He couldn't tell what cultivation level he was at now. He had passed peak void tribulant, but was not a Grand Empyrean yet. He felt like the so-called Grand Empyrean was half a step from his current state. This half step seemed very short, but was actually a large gap that was very difficult to cross. Halfway into heaven trampling, Wang Lin rubbed his temples, and he looked at the celestial emperor's soul he had been refining inside his soul fire for 100 years. The ancestral curse still remained, and he had found it difficult to refine with his previous cultivation level. At this moment, his eyes lit up, and his right hand reached toward the Celestial Emperor's soul. When he grabbed it, the soul fire around it disappeared, leaving only the soul. Looking at the soul, Wang Lin had a strange feeling. He had an illusion that he didn't need to use too much effort to easily remove the ancestral curse. This was naturally due to the fact that there wasn't much of the ancestral curse left. It had been shared by Ju Di and the others, and he had been refining it for 100 years in his soul fire. However, even so, if it was before, he would have needed to refine it for 100 more years in his soul fire before he could expel it completely. With that strange gaze in his eyes, Wang Lin's left index finger penetrated the soul and touched the gray gas inside it. Wang Lin softly whispered, "Scatter." The moment he said this one word, a distortion appeared inside the secret chamber and countless lines appeared around Wang Lin's left index finger. The lines entered the gray gas inside the Celestial Emperor's soul. This mass of gray gas trembled, and then rapidly dissipated until none remained. After removing the small portion of the ancestral curse so easily, Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. Now that the ancestral curse was gone, the Celestial Emperor's eyes trembled as if he was going to open his eyes. Wang Lin didn't do anything but watch the Celestial Emperor's soul open his eyes. After a moment of confusion, his gaze turned into viciousness and hatred. Wang Lin. A divine sense rushed toward Wang Lin, but to Wang Lin, this divine sense was insignificant. Seeing that Wang Lin wasn't affected at all, the Celestial Emperor was startled. The moment he felt startled, Wang Lin's right hand squeezed. With this, a powerful rushed into the Celestial Emperor's soul, and with a bang, the Celestial Emperor died completely. His soul turned into a mass and was about to dissipate. Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly, and his left hand reached at the void. A giant head suddenly appeared inside the secret chamber. It was the celestial ancestor's head, and when it appeared, a dense golden light scattered. This caused the world to change colors and filled the chamber with dense celestial energy. With the soul as a guide fuse, Wang Lin waved his sleeve and the Celestial Emperor's soul split into 7 strands of gas that flew toward the celestial ancestor's head. These 7 strands of gas rushed toward the 7 orifices. Wang Lin suddenly stood up and walked out of the secret chamber for the first time in 100 years. He stood over the celestial ancestor's head and waved at the sky. A giant sun appeared behind the celestial ancestor's head. This sun was black and white, and it was only an outline rather than corporeal like a real Grand Imperial sun. With my previous cultivation level, I couldn't do it, but now I should be able to do it. With Lian Daojian's soul as a guide, I can fuse the celestial ancestor's head with my Grand Empyrean sun. With it, my Grand Empyrean sun will form completely. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and his hands formed seals. Green lights followed the 7 strands into the celestial ancestor's 7 orifices, causing the head to tremble. At this moment the sky was dim and a powerful pressure descended, shrouding the area. Even if one was very far, they would feel it clearly. As Wang Lin continued to form seals, the celestial ancestor's head trembled violently and fine cracks appeared on it, spreading across the entire head. However, it showed no sign of breaking or melting. Wang Lin didn't make a sound as his hands formed seals, and he opened his mouth to spit out a mouthful of green fire. The fire burned the celestial ancestor's head, then the head finally showed signs of melting. The moment it started melting, Wang Lin's black and white sun shrouded it. It shined brightly and began to rapidly absorb it. However, the speed at which the head was melting was slowing down, and as time passed, it showed signs of stopping. Indeed worthy of the celestial ancestor, who stepped past the 8th heaven-trampling bridge. Even after being dead for so long, just his head is so difficult to refine, Wang Lin murmured. He thought about who could kill the celestial ancestor but found no clues. However, in the end, this is just a head. Wang Lin raised his right hand and reached at the void. The dim sky suddenly changed colors and countless fine lines appeared. Others couldn't see then, and only after becoming a Grand Empyrean could one vaguely sense them. However, even Grand Empyreans had touch on the tip of controlling these fine lines. Only after taking that step into the first heaven-trampling bridge could one really extract them from the world and put them to use. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he muttered to himself, No wonder it is rumored that Grand Empyrean Gu Dao could kill other Grand Empyreans, and that several Grand Empyreans died by his hand in the Great War, countless years ago. With this power to manipulate the world, it shouldn't be difficult to kill Grand Empyreans. The celestial ancestor is indeed someone who walked past the 8th bridge. After his head is fused with my Grand Empyrean son, it will become a powerful aid and treasure. It was at this moment that a thunderous rumble echoed in the sky in the distance and a huge crack appeared. Large amounts of black gas spread out and a giant ancient devil walked out. However, just as the ancient devil walked out, it was startled. Song Tian's divine sense was inside the devil, and when he felt the strangeness here, his expression changed. He saw Wang Lin in the distance. Wang Lin completely ignored him and seemed to be grabbing countless fine lines in his hand. All the lines were wrapped around the head, and then Wang Lin bit his tongue to spit out blood that fell on the lines and the head. At this moment, the celestial ancestor's head began to melt rapidly and was rapidly absorbed by Wang Lin's Grand Empyrean son. As the Grand Empyrean sun rapidly condensed, a third color, gold, appeared. Controlling the law of the world. The ancient devil that just appeared let out a shriek of disbelief. Wishing for the like button for the VIDEO, hoping to charge through the trending charts for the VIDEO this month, Grand Empyreans could explore the edge of the law of the world. With their powerful faith, they could borrow these laws to make things corporeal. The so-called creating something from nothing was this. However, it was simply turning the illusory into real. They could not grasp the laws and use them as they wished like Wang Lin. This was not borrowing, but a higher level of manipulation of the law of the world. Song Tian could not do this. In his memory, when he had gone to meet Grand Empyrean Gu Dao, he personally saw something similar. This is impossible! The ancient devil, containing a hint of Song Tian's divine sense, revealed a look of disbelief. He could not believe what he was seeing at all, that Wang Lin, who he considered not worthy of his concern, could control the law of the world after coming out of closed-door cultivation. The moment his ancient devil walked out from the rift, he was completely startled. His mind was completely blank, and there was no thought other than Wang Lin reaching toward the sky and all the laws gathering. Wang Lin was not concerned about the appearance of the ancient devil, and he didn't even look at it. He focused on melting the celestial ancestor head before him. With his mouth full of blood and the law of the world, most of it had already melted. The parts that had melted were completely absorbed by his Grand Empyrean son. The golden light became brighter and brighter, and the three-colored Grand Empyrean sun released a strange light. The celestial ancestor's head shrank rapidly as golden light penetrated it. A moment later, only a small portion of the head remained. It no longer looked like a head, but a mass of golden light. As it became smaller and smaller, Wang Lin's three-colored Grand Empyrean sun rapidly became brighter and more solid. Once the head completely melted, and the three-colored Grand Empyrean sun fully absorbed the head, it would become a real Grand Empyrean sun, and Wang Lin would become a real Grand Empyrean. He would be the second strongest Grand Empyrean on the immortal astral continent after Grand Empyrean Gu Dao. In the distance, the ancient devil with Song Tian's divine sense gasped and recovered. He didn't want to believe what he was seeing, but reality was before him, so he had to believe it. At this moment, his heart trembled, and he didn't hesitate to slowly retreat. Seeing Wang Lin ignore him, he retreated at the quickest speed back into the rift that he had arrogantly torn open. As a Grand Empyrean, he rarely did such a thing, feel timid before he even battled. Compared to how arrogantly he had arrived, his escaping figure was too much of a contrast. However, just as the ancient devil closed in on the rift and was about to enter it, a cold voice echoed across the world. "Are you just going to leave like that?" This voice caused the ancient devil containing Song Tian's divine sense to be startled and then move at full speed as if it had gone mad. However, just as the cold voice echoed, Wang Lin's cold gaze landed on the ancient devil. Fine lines appeared around the ancient devil and wrapped around the ancient devil's body. The ancient devil trembled and became motionless, as if it was frozen. Wang Lin had speculated a long time ago that the stop spell was related to the law of the world. With his current cultivation level, he no longer needed to form seals, just a gaze could make them appear. What was stopped by Wang Lin's gaze was not just the ancient devil, but also Song Tian's divine sense. The divine sense trembled and couldn't move at all. At the same time, far away on Origin Mountain, Song Tian was sitting there, and he suddenly opened his eyes. His face was pale and contained a trace of fear. His divine sense had been frozen, and it almost affected his origin soul. Open the origin array. Song Tian didn't hesitate to immediately let out a roar. As the roar echoed, all the powerful people that followed Song Tian were startled and quickly flew around to set up the formation. Teacher Chiman didn't know what had happened, but seeing his teacher's gloomy expression, he felt a pressure and knew that something bad was going to happen. Shut up! This Lord don't want to be bothered right now. If not for your throne, how could I activate the origin array? Song Tian turned around and looked at Chu Man with a cold gaze. I have already done my best. If I fail, then you will not become the ancient emperor in 100 years, that Jidu will. Song Tian also felt anger. After he finished speaking, he flew into the sky and then reached down. The origin mountain trembled and a ray of light shot out. It was a giant war axe. This war axe was covered in rust and was not beautiful. However, when Song Tian held it, a roar came from the axe and inexhaustible green souls flew out of it and surrounded Song Tian in a green light. This made Song Tian look very strange. As Song Tian prepared to go all out in the Luo country, Wang Lin let out a long howl at the sky. As he howled, the sky changed colors. The celestial ancestor head that had mostly melted and turned into a bright ball of golden light had begun its final stage of melting. It became smaller and smaller. A moment later, it was only the size of a fist. The Grand Empyrean Sun became even more solid than the Grand Empyrean Suns of Grand Empyreans. Staring at the fist-sized golden light, Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. He raised his right hand and reached at the palace below. Wang Lin's life and death, karma, and true and false essences flew out from the secret chamber and into his body. At this moment, when all his essences had returned to him, a thunderous rumble echoed inside his body. His hair moved without any wind and he released a shocking aura. Wang Lin looked at the melting celestial ancestor's head and spat out a mouthful of essence aura. This aura was invisible, and only Wang Lin himself could feel it. The moment this aura touched the head suddenly trembled and melted. It melted completely, and was completely absorbed by Wang Lin's three-colored sun. After absorbing the head, the sun became a corporeal object. Wang Lin completed the Grand Empyrean Sun and sent it into the sky of the immortal astral continent, so it could become the 10th sun. This was a symbol of him truly becoming a Grand Empyrean. Before, Wang Lin could not be considered a true Grand Empyrean. The moment his Grand Empyrean Sun formed completely, Wang Lin raised his head and looked at the sky. This three-colored Grand Empyrean Sun seemed to be held up and slowly rose up to the sky. Looking at his own Grand Empyrean Sun rush toward the highest place in the sky, Wang Lin suddenly recalled when a trace of his divine sense entered the immortal astral continent and saw the strange scene of 9 suns in the sky. Grand Empyrean Wang Lin muttered as he looked at his own Grand Empyrean Sun releasing a powerful burst of three-colored light. At this moment, when Wang Lin raised his own Grand Empyrean Sun into the sky, it affected the Grand Empyrean Suns of all the other Grand Empyreans. In the Celestial Clan, in the Dao Yi sect, the Northern Continent, the Purple Yang sect, and Mount Emperor, each respective Grand Empyrean Sun rose up and shined brightly. Shortly after, inside the ancestral city, a golden sun appeared, forming the 5th sun of the Celestial Clan. At the same time, in the ancient clan, Xuan Luo's Grand Empyrean Sun appeared over the place where he was in closed-door cultivation. In the ancient Ju, the extremely mysterious Grand Empyrean there also had his Grand Empyrean Sun appear in the sky. And Song Tian's Grand Empyrean Sun also appeared without his control and flew into the sky. The last to appear was Grand Empyrean Gudao's Grand Empyrean Sun. At this moment, 10 suns suddenly appeared above the immortal astral continent. The remaining 9 Grand Empyrean Suns hadn't appeared because their owners wanted them to. They had been attracted by Wang Lin's Grand Empyrean Sun. No Grand Empyrean was surprised by this. Aside from when the Celestial Emperor inherited their Grand Empyrean power, this was a heavenly sign that appeared whenever someone became a Grand Empyrean. And at this time, because all the Grand Empyrean Suns were in the sky, the energy in the immortal astral continent surged. This allowed the other Grand Empyreans to clearly feel the aura of the new Grand Empyrean. There were a clear size difference in the 10 suns. The largest was Grand Empyrean Gudao. His Grand Empyrean sun was almost equivalent to the total of all the other 8 suns, excluding Wang Lin's 3-colored sun. The second largest was Wang Lin's 3-colored sun. Although not as large as Grand Empyrean Gudao's, it was nearly half its size. It radiated light no weaker than Grand Empyrean Gudao's sun. Godfather Grand Empyrean in the Luohuo country, Prince Jidu revealed never-before-seen excitement and laughed out loud. The video schedule for first is up, and I ask all friends not to be stingy. Remember to share Leo. If you're capable friends, please be prepared to support Leo with a like. Wang Lin. It's actually Wang Lin. A roar came out of the Dao Yi sect, and the anger in that roar echoed across the world. Aside from anger, there was a sense of fear and dread. Facing Wang Lin, Dao Yi could not forget everything that had happened inside the palace in the ancestral city. Back then, Wang Lin was already extremely powerful, and now he was a Grand Empyrean. He didn't dare to imagine how strong Wang Lin was now. The giant Grand Empyrean sun that was second only to Gudao's also revealed Wang Lin's strength. He hasn't even gone to the immemorial God realm, and yet he actually become a Grand Empyrean based on his own strength. In the northern continent, Wu Feng was in a trance as he stared at the sky for a long time. In the Purple Yang sect, the 2 little girls were filled with joy. They pulled each other's hands while looking at the sky. He became a Grand Empyrean. On Mount Emperor in the ancestral city, Grand Empyrean Jidu looked in the direction of the ancient clan. His heart trembled, his face became slightly pale, and he was uncertain. When he was in the palace, he had already formed the outline of a sun. Then he obtained the celestial ancestor's head. This sun has 3 colors, black, white, and gold. The gold should be from the fusion of the celestial ancestor's head. Normally it shouldn't be a great shock that he became a Grand Empyrean, but it's only been a mere 100 years, and he has already refined the celestial ancestor's head. And the time he became a Grand Empyrean, Jidu's heart trembled. He was the only one who knew the truth about the 72 souls causing an uproar. He thought about the gaze from before and couldn't help but connect it with Wang Lin becoming a Grand Empyrean. Jidu revealed dread and muttered to himself, "It should be impossible." Haizi was sitting at the corner of Mount Emperor as she looked up at the sky with a complicated gaze and revealed a hint of enlightenment. Also in the ancestral city, under the palace, Lian Daofei, who had turned into a mountain, remained motionless. In the ancient clan, an uproar was set off in the ancient Xia's origin mountain. Song Tian had a bitter expression. Although he had already seen it when he sent the ancient devil over and was prepared, his heart still trembled. In the ancient Dao imperial city, Xuan Luo felt Wang Lin's aura. A smile appeared on his face. He was very happy and laughed out loud. In the Luohuo country, in the sky above the palace, Wang Lin waved his hand, and his 3-colored Grand Empyrean sun disappeared. However, the shadow of his Grand Empyrean sun would forever remain in the sky as a symbol of him becoming a Grand Empyrean. The world returned to normal as the power of the law slowly dissipated. Several rays of light flew out from the palace, and the one in front was Prince Jidu. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, immediately knelt down when he was 1,000 feet from Wang Lin and spoke loudly. "Congratulations, Godfather, on becoming a Grand Empyrean." "Greetings, Lord Wang." Behind Jidu, the young woman and her husband, the young man in purple, spoke respectfully. They could not hide the shock in their eyes and dropped down to one knee before Wang Lin. After all, if Jidu did this, the 2 of them had to follow. "We greet Lord Wang." After the 3 of them spoke, all the guards in the palace got down on one knee and bowed at Wang Lin. Their voices fused together into a sound wave that echoed across the palace. Wang Lin floated in the air and looked at the people. He looked at Prince Jidu and the young couple with a smile. He was calm as he looked at the frozen ancient devil and walked over. Standing before the ancient devil, Wang Lin raised his right hand and pointed to between the eyebrows of the ancient devil. The ancient devil trembled and revealed a painful expression. A ray of black light flew out and disappeared into the wind. The ancient devil no longer felt pain, and its mind was restored. It looked at Wang Lin with fear and whimpered. It was able to move again, so it also dropped down to one knee and lowered its head at Wang Lin. "Jidu, I am going to take you to see Song Tian." Wang Lin stepped on the head of the ancient devil and looked back at Jidu. Jidu's body trembled and he suddenly looked up. He could not suppress his excitement as he looked at Wang Lin and revealed his gratitude. "Thanks, Godfather, for helping." Jidu took a deep breath and arrived at the head of the ancient devil. He respectfully stood behind Wang Lin and looked at Wang Lin's back. This back was not large, but he felt like it was a mountain. As long as he had this back supporting him, he could become the ancient Shi Emperor. The large ancient devil didn't need Wang Lin to give any command. It let out a howl as it turned with Wang Lin and Jidu on its back and tore open the rift it came from. It went inside the rift and disappeared. When it disappeared, the rift in the sky slowly closed until it became a white line, which also disappeared. Outside the ancient Shi, on Origin Mountain, when Wang Lin had erased Song Tian's divine sense on the ancient devil, Song Tian trembled. His face had turned slightly pale, but he quickly recovered. His expression was gloomy as he held the giant war axe in his hand. He looked up at the sky and his breathing gradually became even. He knew his actions would make Wang Lin come here. Even if I hadn't tried to test Wang Lin earlier, he would have still come here in order to make Jidu the next emperor. Song Tian sighed. He didn't have any confidence in winning, but as a Grand Empyrean, he could not just yield without a battle. On Origin Mountain, a thunderous rumble echoed and haze surrounded the mountain. There seemed to be a large army inside the haze that gave off powerful killing intent. With the Origin formation and the war axe that contains law, which was gifted to me by Grand Empyrean Gu Dao, even if he has the power to manipulate law, I should still be able to put up a fight. Song Tian took a deep breath and calmly looked at the sky as he waited for Wang Lin's arrival. Behind him, Chi-Man had a bitter expression and was silently pondering. Time slowly passed, and in the blink of an eye, one incense stick of time passed. Just at this moment, a rumble came from the sky, and a large rift was torn open in the sky. Large amounts of black gas spewed out, and a large ancient devil came out. There were two people standing on its head. It was Wang Lin and Jidu. Song Tian suddenly looked at Wang Lin. At the same time, Chi-Man's gaze met with Jidu's gaze. Song Tian waved his sleeve and coldly said, "Wang Lin!" Wang Lin smiled as he clasped his hand and said, "Greetings, Lord Song. Don't speak more nonsense. I know why you came here. We will battle. If you win, I'll make Jidu the next emperor in 100 years. Song Tian sighed. He didn't even say what would happen if he won. He waved his left hand and the troops in the fog around Origin Mountain let out a fierce roar as they charged at Wang Lin. At the same time, Song Tian grabbed the axe and chopped down on Wang Lin. Grand Empyrean Song Tian was stronger than Dao Yi, about as powerful as Wu Feng. If Wang Lin had wanted to battle Song Tian 100 years ago, victory would be uncertain. He would have had to use all his power beside the Avatar in the void to fight. But now, Wang Lin remained calm as he faced the endless troops and the heaven-splitting axe. He raised his right hand and pointed 3 times. With the first point, a thunderous rumble came from the army, rushing at Wang Lin. The army disappeared like bubbles. It was as if they had hit an invisible barrier. This was what it looked like to Chi-Man and Jidu. But in Song Tian's eyes, he saw the laws of the world appear before the army. After the army dissipated, Wang Lin's second point made the haze around Origin Mountain shatter. The fog was torn apart into countless pieces and disappeared. The whole mountain rumbled, and the powerful members of the ancient Shi that had been managing the formation all coughed out blood and were weakened. Song Tian felt his scalp go numb, but he endured and revealed a cold gaze. He still held the war axe and chopped down on Wang Lin. At this moment, Wang Lin pointed for the 3rd time. An illusory fist appeared out of thin air before Song Tian. This fist was composed completely of the fine lines that represented the law of the world. The fist collided with Song Tian's axe. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the axe broke inch by inch before it shattered into countless pieces that fell on the earth. The fist made of law also trembled, and was split in half. Song Tian coughed out a mouthful of blood and retreated 1,000 feet until he landed on Origin Mountain. The entire mountain trembled and cracks appeared on it. Wang Lin's right hand paused when a white mark appeared on his finger but didn't break his skin. The war axe contains law. Wang Lin looked at the war axe fragment in the distance and his hand reached out. The pieces flew toward Wang Lin and fused together to form a complete war axe. "Do you still want to fight?" Wang Lin's gaze calmly landed on Song Tian. Why not fight? Song Tian laughed and flew into the sky. He raised his right hand and reached at the origin mountain below. The entire origin mountain trembled and seemed to rise up. It feels like it was being lifted into the sky by Song Tian. Countless rays of light flew out of the mountain. They were the people that lived on the mountain, including Chi Man, and they looked at all of this in horror. Countless rays of light flew out from the imperial palace and headed toward this place. The VIDEO has reached first place in the ranking but still can't maintain the top position. Urgently wishing for all friends to push around a VIDEO, Leo is extremely grateful. Wang Lin watched Grand Empyrean Song Tian raise Origin Mountain into the sky, and the earth trembled as even more black light was released. Their expressions were all calm as he coldly looked over. The mountain rose higher and higher until it floated high above Song Tian's head. He raised his right hand as if he was holding a mountain. Wang Lin, if you can withstand the power of this Origin Mountain, then I admit defeat. Song Tian let out a roar as he waved his right hand and Origin Mountain smashed down on Wang Lin. This mountain is called Origin Mountain. It was the first mountain born in the ancient Xi and has been here for countless. Its size hasn't changed at all after all these years. I completed my Tao and became a Grand Empyrean here. After I refined the mountain, I was able to release its suppression force. Wang Lin, take this attack. The world rumbled and the mountain howled loudly. The mountain was extremely shocking and instantly suppressed the area. The mountain was very strange, and Wang Lin could clearly see the power of law being pushed away by the mountain. A mysterious force split the law apart as if this mountain and the law of the world could not coexist. Wang Lin's eyes shined brightly. He stood there as his clothes and white hair danced in the wind. He looked at the incoming mountain and threw a punch at it. This punch landed on the void, and the force collided with the mountain 1,000 feet away. A thunderous rumble echoed, and the speed of the descent of the mountain reduced greatly, but it was still falling. Wang Lin's punch trembled and shattered after colliding with the mountain. At the same time, a powerful pressure fell on Wang Lin, and the space he was in split. It was like the area around him had been completely separated from the world. Interesting, Wang Lin smiled faintly. This Origin Mountain-S suppression was similar to the Ancient Ancestor-S finger. However, the Ancient Ancestor-S finger separated the area into its own world to collapse it to kill the enemy. This Origin Mountain separated the area into its own world to prevent the enemy from escaping and suppress them. Wang Lin looked at the incoming mountain and muttered to himself, indeed worthy of a Grand Empyrean. None of the 9 Grand Empyreans are weak. Each Grand Empyrean has their own spells. For example, Song Tian's Origin Mountain can reject laws and achieve the same effect of creating its own world like the Ancient Ancestor-S finger. Although this isn't a faith spell, it's enough to be proud of. His eyes lit up. With his current cultivation level, there was no one who could make him feel dread other than Grand Empyrean Gudao. None of the other Grand Empyreans were a threat to Wang Lin. Although this Origin Mountain was extraordinary, that was it. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he raised his hand and pointed at the incoming mountain. This point was the Ancient Ancestor finger. With one point, the world changed colors, and the clouds scattered. The space separated by the mountain rumbled, and a large amount of cracks appeared around Wang Lin. The cracks became longer, making it seem as if the space around him was going to collapse because it could not withstand the force anymore. After Wang Lin pointed at the mountain, there was a rumble, and it stopped. Although it continued to tremble, it could not descend anymore. Just at this moment, the separated space Wang Lin was trapped in collapsed. Wang Lin calmly stepped out and looked at Song Tian. Want to fight more? Song Tian revealed a bitter expression, but he clenched his teeth and jumped on top of Origin Mountain. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood that turned into a blood mist, which was then absorbed by the mountain. Song Tian sat down and his hands formed seals as he let out a roar. Origin suppression. Origin Mountain let out a thunderous rumble. It broke free and descended upon Wang Lin once more. Wang Lin shook his head and moved. Before waiting for the mountain to descend, he appeared before the mountain and pressed his right hand against it. The moment his palm landed, the mountain suddenly trembled and Song Tian coughed out blood once more. He was knocked back several steps before he managed to stop. At this moment, the rays of light from the ancient Shi imperial city arrived, revealing dozens of figures. The person in front was an old man in a royal robe. When he looked at Wang Lin, his expression changed. Wang Lin didn't look at the people that had arrived. He waved his sleeve after Song Tian was knocked back. Origin Mountain immediately rotated and shrank until it was the size of a palm. Then it landed in Wang Lin's right hand. After the mountain shrank, it looked like a bull's head, and the broken horn had returned to normal. When Song Tian saw this, he staggered back and his face became pale. Over the countless years, no ancient Shi Grand Empyrean could shrink the mountain to such a degree. But for Wang Lin, he didn't even seem to refine it when he made it shrink. It also looked like Wang Lin could fully manipulate it as he wished. Song Tian felt bitterness in his heart as he let out a sigh and gave up all resistance. He clasped his hands and bowed at Wang Lin. "I admit defeat," Song Tian said. Then he looked back at the people that had arrived. They were all shocked by this scene. As the guardian of the ancient Shi and as a Grand Empyrean, I recognize Prince Jidu as the new emperor in 100 years, Song Tian slowly said. Then his gaze fell on the old man in the royal robe. The old man was the current ancient Shi emperor. He hesitated a bit and seemed like he wanted to say something, but he looked at Wang Lin and remained silent. He clasped his hands at Song Tian and nodded. Prince Jidu was filled with excitement. All of this felt unreal to him. What he had always dreamed of had been obtained so easily, causing him to enter a trance. However, he was no ordinary person, so after a moment, he immediately took a deep breath and stepped forward before everyone. He hesitated for a moment and didn't thank Song Tian or his father. Instead, he turned and got down on one knee before Wang Lin in front of Song Tian, his father, the emperor, and many powerful members of the ancient Shi. "Thank you, Godfather, for your help." This kneeling and sentence caused everyone's expressions to change. They all looked over and revealed looks of disbelief. In the ancient clan where the imperial power was supreme, the prince that had been recognized as the future emperor had actually knelt and recognized someone as his godfather. This kind of thing was beyond everyone's imagination and caused an uproar. "Jidu, what are you doing?" The first person to speak was the middle-aged man standing next to the ancient Shi emperor. He was the crown prince. In the distance, Shi man originally felt unwilling, but he had no power to change it. However, now his eyes lit up. "Jidu, as a prince, how can you randomly recognize someone as your godfather? You will be the future ancient Shi emperor. How can you kneel toward an ancient Dao Grand Empyrean?" The ancient Shi emperor was still silently pondering. He looked at his own son kneeling before Wang Lin, not hiding the hint of gloominess in his eyes. The surrounding uproar caused Jidu's face to turn a bit pale, but his eyes were filled with determination as he looked at Wang Lin. He knew what he was doing. He wanted to use this to tell his godfather that even if he became the ancient Shi emperor, Wang Lin was still his godfather. Wang Lin also looked at Jidu. He hadn't expected Jidu to have the courage to do such a thing before his father, his brothers, and his fellow clansmen. Jidu could have secretly fulfilled his promise to Wang Lin. This way, his process of becoming the emperor would be smooth, but now there would be twists and turns in his path. The uproar was getting louder and louder, but Song Tian didn't speak and the ancient Shi emperor also remained silent. Only his gaze became more gloomy. Wang Lin slowly said, "Jidu, I accept you as my adopted son." Jidu took a deep breath. Before this, Wang Lin had never recognized him, and it was just him calling Wang Lin his godfather. When he heard Wang Lin's words, Jidu bowed once more. "In 100 years, you will be the ancient Shi emperor." Wang Lin didn't look at the crowd, but toward the ancient Shi imperial city. He could see that in the imperial city, there was a towering statue of the ancient ancestor. That place was where the ancestral temple was located. The crown prince and Shi man's faces were pale and they seemed to want to speak. The ancient Shi emperor seemed to understand something and let out a sigh before he spoke for the first time. "For my child to have a godfather like Lord Wang is his fortune and glory to my ancient Shi. I am not the ancient Dao emperor, so will not force Lord Wang away, as that would cause a disaster for the ancient Shi. I ask Lord Wang to stay in my ancient Shi. If you have any requests, I'll do my best to satisfy them." The old man in the royal robe clasped his hands and bowed at Wang Lin. At this moment, Song Tian smiled and said to Wang Lin, "If Brother Wang doesn't have anywhere to go, how about staying here and witness Jidu becoming the emperor in 100 years? Prince Jidu got up and respectfully said to the ancient Shi emperor, "Father, Godfather wants to go to the ancestral temple, and this child has agreed, but I would like to ask Father's permission." The old man smiled and said without hesitation, "Ancestral temple. If Lord Wang wants to go, then I naturally agree." He didn't dare to disagree or have any opinion about Jidu taking this person as his godfather. This Lord Wang had killed the ancient Dao emperor and broken into the ancient Dao imperial city and had left with his life. Even Grand Empyrean Gu Dao hadn't said a word. When he sat that even Grand Empyrean Song Tian was not his match, how could he dare to offend Wang Lin? The supremacy of the imperial power had no effect on something like this. Urgently wishing for all friends to push a round of video, Leo is extremely grateful. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. There were only 3 ancestral temples in the entire ancient clan. They were in the imperial city of each royal family and were located at the foot of each country's statue. Every single adult ancient clan member would willingly come to the ancestral temple during their 3rd trial. However, they wouldn't go too deep, and people of the royal family were allowed to enter the inner area. Since ancient times, very few people had met the qualifications to enter closed-door cultivation inside the ancestral temples. This was rare even for Grand Empyreans, because the control was in the hands of each generation's emperor. Only members of the royal families could go into the depth of the temples to pass this trial. Wang Lin was standing at the center of the imperial city of the ancient Shi. He was beneath the ancient statue, just silently staring ahead. This statue was the same as the ancient Dao statue. The ancient ancestor looked at the heavens and earth with disdain and contempt. Before Wang Lin had crossed the 3 heaven-trampling bridges, he didn't feel too much when he saw the ancient ancestor's statue in the ancient Dao. However, at this moment, this statue became different in his eyes. The contempt and disdain was only on the surface. Deep within, Wang Lin saw a hint of sadness. This sadness was directed toward himself and also all living beings. Wang Lin slowly said, "Who carved the ancient ancestor's statue?" Beside Wang Lin, Song Tian stood there as he looked at the statue and slowly said, "Grand Empyrean Gu Dao." After the ancient ancestor disappeared, Grand Empyrean Gu Dao brought 3 mountains from some unknown place. He personally carved 3 statues and erected them in the 3 imperial cities. It is also because of this that U.S. descendants can remember the appearance of the ancient ancestor and not forget due to the passage of time. Wang Lin gently nodded. He knew that a race had to have a symbol of hope. If there were none, then this race would not last long and would slowly die out. It was obvious the ancient ancestor's statues and legends were the symbols that the ancient clan believed in. Grand Empyrean Gu Dao, guardian of the ancient clan. Just from this title, one could see his wisdom. Wang Lin and Song Tian were standing beneath the statue as if they were silently waiting for something. Shortly after, murmuring came from the direction of the imperial palace. A ray of dark light rushed toward this location and circled around the ancient ancestor statue to form dark halos. Below the statue, on the boot of the ancient ancestor statue, there was a huge door. This door was closed, but when the dark halo appeared, the door slowly opened. "Brother Wang, the ancestral temple has opened. I want to be going in, take care." Song Tian clasped his hands at Wang Lin. Wang Lin looked at the door that was opening and revealed a solemn expression. Whether he could allow Li Muwan to safely enter the immemorial god realm all depended on whether he could obtain 2 more drops of soul blood on the 3rd trial. Wang Lin clasped his hands at Song Tian before he took a deep breath and walked toward the ancestral temple. His pace was not fast, but every step was very stable. Step by step, he arrived before the open door and walked inside without hesitation. The moment he entered the ancestral temple, the door slowly closed. After only half an instant's stick of time did the door close completely. The dark light on the ancient ancestor's statue gradually dimmed. It turned back into a ray of light and disappeared back into the imperial palace. Song Tian stood there for a long time before he let out a sigh and left. The members of the ancient Shi all saw the aura around the statue, but few knew Wang Lin had entered. This news was suppressed by the ancient Shi emperor. so people slowly forgot about this matter. The entire ancient Xi was no different from before, but the people that paid attention would notice that Prince Jidu, who was often away from the imperial city, was now living inside the palace. The crown prince had been titled king 10 years ago and had been sent away to guard the border. Another 5 years passed. Prince Chi-man, who was most likely to become the next emperor, was tilted king and was sent out of the imperial city. After 15 years passed, the princes were titled kings and sent away one by one. After 30 years of time, only Prince Jidu remained. During these 30 years, Prince Jidu had been very quiet and hadn't interacted with the outside too much. His status as the next emperor was set, and he no longer had to act in secret. He just had to wait. After all the other princes were titled kings and sent away, the people of the ancient Xi knew who the future emperor would be. Jidu gradually began to come in contact with all the hidden powers that belonged to the emperor. In the remaining 70 years, his father was going to slowly pass the power to him. This was something all new emperors in all 3 ancient clans had to do, and it was also the most peaceful time. Everything proceeded as planned, and Jidu still maintained good habits. Almost every morning when he got up, he would silently look toward the direction of the ancestral temple. He didn't know when he would next see his godfather, but this habit remained the same. Many clansmen who later followed Jidu noticed his and were very puzzled. Even though they secretly inquired about it, they could not find any clues. Time slowly passed, and this matter became a secret. In addition to this habit, during these 30 years, he didn't forget Wang Lin's command. He had sent a lot of powerful people to Blackstone City to silently guard a woman. That woman was called Xianxia. After more than 100 years, Xianxia was no longer the same as before and revealed the passage of time. She never knew that the Lord of Blackstone City and countless powerful experts had a secret mission because of her. In a flash, another 20 years passed. On the 50th year since Wang Lin had stepped into the ancestral temple, a grand ceremony was held in the ancient Xi. This grand ceremony was not Song Tian's crowning ceremony, but his wedding. He had chosen one of Song Tian's descendants, a woman named Song Yu, as his wife. This woman was doted on by Song Tian, and was one of the few descendants who could personally listen to his teachings. This grand festival lasted for several months, and during this time members of the other 2 clans came. From the ancient Dao came a middle-aged man, and if Wang Lin saw him, he would see that this person looked very similar to Yi Mo. He was Yi Mo's descendant. After this festival ended and everyone had left, Jidu brought his wife before the ancestral temple as the moon hung high in the sky. The moonlight was soft and bathed the ancient ancestor statue. Jidu silently pulled his puzzled wife's hand toward the ancestral temple and stopped 100 feet away from it. He looked at the ancestral temple and entered a trance. After a long time, he silently knelt down. The woman beside him was puzzled but didn't ask, and instead knelt down with him 100 feet away from the ancestral temple. Jidu softly said, "Song Yu, we are not bowing to the ancient ancestor." The woman was startled. "We are bowing to my godfather." "Godfather?" The woman was surprised. "Godfather, I have taken Lord Song's descendant as my wife. She will be the future empress of the ancient Xi. Today, I brought her here to pay respects, godfather." Jidu was very respectful. This came from his heart, and he was being very sincere. He would forever remember that everything he had obtained had been given to him by Wang Lin. He would always remember that if there was no Wang Lin, he would had no chance of becoming emperor. Even the woman beside him would not be his wife. She would belong to Chi-man instead. "Godfather, there are 50 more years before the day this child becomes the new emperor. This child hopes that I can see Godfather that day." The woman beside him seemed to remember something and looked at the ancestral temple in shock. She vaguely remembered that her Song family's old ancestor, Lord Song, had inadvertently mentioned a name. When this name was mentioned, Song Tian's expression became complicated and showed a hint of respect. The woman whispered, "Wang, Lord Wang." Jidu didn't speak but knelt there for a long time before he got up and silently left with his wife. However, when he was a few hundred feet away, a voice came from the ancestral temple. "When you become the new emperor, I'll be there." Jidu's body trembled and he suddenly turned around. He looked at the ancestral temple and smiled. Wang Lin was sitting deep inside the ancestral temple. His body was giving off the smell of decay and had withered greatly. He looked like a corpse. but his eyes were bright as the stars. The ancient clan S, 3 trials and 7 calamities. In the cave world, I completed 2 trials and 4 calamities, and I even passed the first calamity of the 3rd trial. The first calamity of the 3rd trial was the ancient race heavenly blood. The second calamity of the 3rd trial is the ancient Tao 3 soul splits. The 3rd calamity, which is the last one, is the blessing of the ancient ancestor. Wang Lin murmured as he looked ahead. There was a stone tablet before him, and engraved on it was all the information about the ancient clan S3 trials and 7 calamities. After a long time, Wang Lin closed his eyes, and the voice that had appeared when he passed the first calamity of the 3rd trial and obtained the drop of soul blood echoed in his mind. If I want this sky to collapse, it will collapse. If I want this earth to break, it will break. If I want a being to die, no one would dare to stop me. If I want no celestials to remain alive, who would dare to save them? Embarrassed, I've been remiss in saying thank you. Thank you all for pressing the like button. Thanks to the fellow Taoists for their praise. Chapter 205. The Yuan Ying within Guishi. In the Sea of Devils, one couldn't see the moon. Only specks of moonlight that shone through the thick fog could be seen. But for cultivators, these small specks of moonlight was enough to guide them. After Yunfei left cave, she quickly headed straight toward a gate in the mountain that surrounded the city. As she was passing through the gate, she stopped and saw someone walk out. This person wore black clothes and a golden cape. The person's entire body seemed to be wrapped in cloth. This black-clothed person looked at Yunfei and, without word, turned around and walked out of the city. Yunfei hesitated, but she clenched her teeth and quickly followed. The two successfully walked through the gate. None of the Lin city guards stopped them. Wang Lin saw all of this from a distance. Using the second devil, he sneered again and his body turned into a ghost-like form. He quietly followed behind them. Wang Lin was able to see through the second devil that the person in black was only at the Jidan middle stage. If Wang Lin wanted to kill that person, he only had to send out his divine sense and destroy their soul. It was just that Yunfei's actions were very mysterious tonight, so Wang Lin wanted to see who she found to break the restriction he had set on her. After the person in black and Yunfei left the city, they headed straight east and stopped at a mountain covered in black mist. They were 3,000 miles from Lin city at this point. Ancestor, disciple has brought the person. The black-clothed person knelt on the ground with one leg. He placed his hand on his chest, forming the shape of a lotus, and revealed a very respectful expression. A thunderous voice boomed out from the mountain, "You can go back." The black mist on the mountain ripped and revealed a small pavilion at the top. The black-clothed person stood up and left without even looking back. Wang Lin was currently standing on a cliff 1,000 miles away. After seeing the black-clothed man leave, he pointed his finger at his brow and the devil Shu Liguo appeared. After Shu Liguo appeared, he received Wang Lin's order. He chuckled and headed toward the black-clothed person. Yunfei stood outside the black mist. She became nervous again and began to hesitate. Everything that had happened tonight wasn't something she had sought out herself. In the days that Wang Lin had been locked in his room, Yunfei found many cultivators to help her remove the restriction, but they all failed. Originally, she had already given up, but unexpectedly, one of the middle Jidan stage city guards found her and said that there was someone who could remove the restriction on her, but she had to pay a price. As a result, Yunfei nervously considered it. If the person had a middle-stage Jidan cultivator working under him, then this mysterious person couldn't be weak. However, that didn't mean that this person had the ability to remove the restriction, because in her mind Wang Lin's cultivation had already reached an unimaginable level. Just when she was contemplating, which was this morning, the middle-stage Jidan cultivator handed her a piece of jade, which contained a detailed recording of all the effects of this restriction. She was stunned. It had to be said that even though she looked for many cultivators to help her break the restriction, she never talked about the effects in detail. The only people that could know these details were the person who set the restriction and someone who could break it. After seeing that jade, Yunfei's hesitating heart became determined, and she decided to risk it. And that's how they reached this point. At this moment, Yunfei raised her head and looked at the pavilion at the top of the mountain. However, because of the mist surrounding the mountain, she couldn't clearly see what the person looked like. Yunfei bit her lower lip and whispered, "Can Senior really break the restriction on Junior?" "Come up and speak." The voice contained overwhelming power. The moment he spoke, The black mist suddenly moved and formed a dragon-shaped path with the head at the top of the mountain and the tail before Yunfei. Yunfei suppressed the fear in her heart and walked up the stairs. Soon, she reached the pavilion at the top of the mountain. The person inside was a middle-aged man who was wearing a robe. He was very good-looking and exuded an aura that made others feel like he was from powerful family. The moment he saw Yunfei, his eyes lit up. The person thought, it really is an ancient restriction, but his expression remained normal and he blandly said, I can remove the restriction on you, but you have to tell me who placed it on you. Yunfei hesitated a little and whispered, Senior, Junior, can tell you that? How about I exchange a batch of pills instead? The middle-aged man pondered a little and shook his head. He said, if you don't tell me, I want remove the restriction on you. I can tell you that within the Sea of Devils, not many can remove this restriction. You can think about it first. Yunfei's expression became unsettled. After pondering for a while, she said, okay. I would like to ask Senior to break the restriction first. If you succeed, then Junior will tell you. The middle-aged man let out a laugh. He waved his hat, and a purple rock appeared in his hand. The rock was a very round and smooth sphere. After he took out the rock, he quickly used a spirit technique on it. The rock started to glow a rainbow color. Shortly after, a red light appeared and landed on Yunfei's forehead. Yunfei shivered. She could feel that the moment the red light entered her body, it broke into many red threads and traveled through her body. At this point, the middle-aged man's expression became very serious. He carefully examined Yunfei. Not long after, a faint symbol appeared between Yunfei's eyebrows. The symbol released a very ancient feel. The moment the middle-aged man saw the symbol, he revealed a joyous expression and muttered, this really is an ancient restriction. I really didn't expect anyone to be able to use this type of restriction. His eyes lit up. He bit finger and dripped a drop of blood on the rock. The rock started to flash intensely and a black and white light came out from the rock. The light went toward the symbol between Yunfei's brow. But at the same time, a change suddenly occurred. A shadow appeared from Yunfei's hair. The shadow revealed a beast's head. It went in front of Yunfei's brow and swallowed the white and black light. Then, the shadow turned to face Yunfei and sucked in a breath. Yunfei's eyes expanded with blood, and her soul was sucked into the beast's mouth. All of this happened too fast, almost in the blink of an eye. Yunfei's soul was taken. In truth, the moment she walked onto the dragon-shaped road, her fate was sealed. There was only death left for her. If she had listened to Wang Lin and quietly waited for Wang Lin to leave the Sea of Devils, then she would have had a chance to live. At the same time, the beast's body expanded and wrapped up Yunfei's body. A storage bag, a pill furnace, and a golden jidan were taken by the beast as it was about to leave. When the middle-aged man saw the beast, his expression changed. He really didn't know what this beast was, to have such a strange ability to suck away someone's soul. He had a speculation that this beast had always been there, and that it had a master. This made the middle-aged man very nervous. But soon, he returned to normal. Seeing that the beast was going to leave, his eyes became cold. He waved his hand and the fog that formed the dragon-shaped road surrounded the beast. Shortly after, he slammed his bag of holding and took out a small drum made from the skin of some unknown animal. He looked at the beast and lightly hit the drum with his finger. With a boom, the black mist started to tremble and turned into black armored soldiers, holding different magical treasures. They charged toward the beast. The second devil was blocked by the black fog in front, and the black armored soldiers behind him were approaching. Many colored lights emitted from the soldiers' weapons and rained down on the second devil. But this beast was Wang Lin's second devil. Although it was not very powerful, it had amazing escape capabilities. Even back when Wang Lin first captured it, it was almost able to escape. The second devil didn't hesitate and swallowed Yunfei's jidan. It suddenly grew twice in size and then split from 1 to 10, then from 10 to 100. Suddenly, there were 100 beasts trapped in the pavilion. All 100 beasts let out sharp screeches. The sound waves rippled through the surroundings. Then, the 100 beasts all beat their wings in unison to create a strong tornado and used it to charge out. With the sound wave opening the path and the tornado following behind, the fog blocking the path became unable to hold its physical form and collapsed. Even some of the soldiers that were chasing from behind were destroyed. Then, the tornado came and blew away the collapsed fog completely. The middle-aged man stared at the tornado created by the beast with great interest in his eyes. He moved his right hand and hit the drum a few more times. Boom, 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 boom. 4 booms echoed in a row, and the fog raged even harder and formed all sorts of strange beasts at the edge of the mountain. All of those beasts were very large and were filled with killing intent as they stared at the tornado. I don't care who your master is. No spirit beast that catches my eye has ever escaped. I know you can understand me, so listen well. Before I only tried to block you, not attack, but in 3 breaths, if you don't obey me, I'll start attacking. The second devil let out a laugh. The bodies he created fused back together inside the tornado, and he suddenly attacked the middle-aged man with a soul attack. The lightning-shaped soul attack broke through all that blocked its way. Even the black fog instantly dispersed when the lightning touched it. In the blink of an eye, it was already before the mid-aged man. The middle-aged man's face suddenly changed. He backed up, bit his lips, and spat out some fresh blood. When the soul attack landed on the blood, a sizzling sound could be heard, and the attack paused slightly. At the same time, the middle-aged man took out a piece of black-colored wood from his bag of holding. With a look of fear on his face, he roared, "Absorb!" At that moment, the soul attack involuntarily charged toward the black-colored wood, but the moment the attack was about to land, the second devil let out a roar, and the soul attack broke into 100 strands and quickly withdrew. The middle-aged man's forehead was covered in sweat. If he was a bit slower earlier, then he would have been in danger, but his current expression showed a very strong sense of enthusiasm. He licked his lips and said, with a husky voice, "It can even use soul attacks. Even if this spirit beast has a master, I will steal it no matter what." The moment he said those words, he heard a very cold voice float in from the distance. "Is that so?" The moment the voice appeared, a buzzing sound appeared as well. The middle-aged man quickly raised his head and saw that a giant tornado appeared on the horizon and quickly charged toward the fog. The beast formed by the black fog was about to attack the tornado when a screech could be heard from within the tornado and a blast of wind came out. It destroyed all of the beasts formed by the fog. Meanwhile, the second devil let out a laugh and charged out. It fused together with the tornado. The second devil was very angry. After gaining control of the tornado, it went on a rampage and started to destroy the surrounding fog. The middle-aged man didn't even look at the tornado, but stared at the horizon with a cautious look in his eyes. He saw a white-haired man wearing black clothes, slowly walking towards him. Although the white-haired man looked like he was moving slowly, he was actually moving very fast. In a few blinks of the eye, the white-haired man appeared on the mountaintop. The middle-aged man's pupils contracted. He hit the drum again, and all of the surrounding fog quickly condensed into 8 balls of black fog. The balls floated around him. Chu Siping's eyes lit up. He calmly said, "You must be the one who knows how to use ancient restrictions." The white-haired man was Wang Lin. He waved his hand and 2 items flew out from the giant tornado. It was the bag of holding and the pill furnace. He didn't look at them, but held them in his hand. Only after he had secured the 2 items did he look at the middle-aged man. Wang Lin saw that this middle-aged man had already reached the peak of Jidan late stage, and was only 1 step away from Yuan Ying. But as long as the person was not Yuan Ying, Wang Lin wouldn't have any trouble killing them. His eyes became cold and he coldly said, "I am this beast's master. You said you wanted to steal it before, correct? Well, come and try to steal it. I'll give you a chance." Wang Lin waved his right hand. The second devil came out from the tornado and floated before the middle-aged man, motionless. Chu Siping frowned. He could see that Wang Lin was also at the late stage of Jidan, but since he could be so arrogant, there must be something else. Chu Siping became very cautious. His eyes waved a bit and stared at the beast before him. He shook his head and said, "Sorry to have let fellow cultivators see such a joke. Before I was only kidding. Since this beast belongs to fellow cultivator, how could I steal it? It was all a misunderstanding. I hope fellow cultivator doesn't mind the small things that have happened." Wang Lin calmly waved his hand and the second devil returned to him. Suddenly, red lightning appeared in his eyes as his G-realm soul appeared. Suddenly, a strong suppressive force appeared. Chu Siping was about to speak when he suddenly saw the red glow from Wang Lin's eyes. His heart sank. He never thought that Wang Lin wouldn't even wait for him to finish speaking before killing him. He became angry in his heart. Wang Lin was at the same cultivation as him. Even if Wang Lin had a magic treasure, It wasn't T like he didn't T have magic treasures of his own. He snorted. He quickly moved backward and waved his hand. The 8 balls of fog quickly spread out into a thick layer of fog. Chu Siping's eyes became cold. Since Wang Lin wouldn't T even listen to him, he decided to just fight first and talk later. But just as this idea formed in his head, he heard from Wang Lin a sound as cold as the icy winds of hell. Destroy! Wang Lin's G realm charged into the fog like lightning. The fog couldn't T compare to his G realm at all and collapsed the moment they collided. Only a series of explosions could be heard as the 8 balls of fog all collapsed. Chu Siping's expression suddenly changed. While he was backing up, without hesitation, he formed a seal with his hand and spit out several mouthfuls of fresh blood to block the red lightning. But the moment the blood appeared, it was turned into mist and was pushed aside. It didn't even stop the lightning for 1 second. A shadow of death that hadn't appeared in a long time loomed over Chu Siping's heart. Without a word, he took out the black piece of wood from earlier. The moment he took it out, Wang Lin's G realm landed on it. Sounds of cracking could be heard from the black piece of wood, and then, with a bang, it exploded. The red lightning left the piece of wood and entered Chu Siping's body. Chu Siping's body trembled, and his eyes became foggy, but after spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, his eyes became clear again. However, this time, his eyes were filled with fear. Without a word, he quickly turned around to escape. Wang Lin let out a sound of surprise. This person didn't die under the attack of his G realm. This really surprised him because the only other time this had happened was outside the Sea of Devils with a guy named Shangguan Mo, who used a mysterious piece of jade to escape. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He chased after Chu Siping like lightning and appeared before him. Chu Siping was terrified. He wryly smiled. Fellow cultivator, you and I don't have any grudges. Why must you kill me? He felt a lot of regret in his heart. When he thought about it, if this person could use ancient restrictions, how could he be weak? Even if the person was only a Jidan late stage, he had a soul attack that he couldn't even defend against. If he didn't have an odd treasure to protect himself, he would have already died. In his eyes, even though the person wasn't at the Yuan Ying stage, he had the attack power of a Yuan Ying cultivator. How could he not run at this point? But as he thought about it, Wang Lin must possess a very powerful treasure to use such a powerful attack. Wang Lin's expression remained cold. His eyes showed a hint of mockery. He blandly said, "You sent people multiple times to lure that woman out in order to find the person who set the ancient restriction. Now that you found him, why are you running?" Chu Siping let out a bitter smile and said, "Fellow cultivator, I don't have any malicious intent." Only he hesitated for a while and quickly continued, "Only. There is something of great benefit that I need someone who knows ancient restrictions to help me with." Chu Siping was a clever man. After hearing Wang Lin's words, he had realized that his black-clothed subordinate was in danger, but he pretended like he didn't know anything. Wang Lin remained calm. His eyes glowed red again. Chu Siping secretly clenched his teeth and urgently said, "Fellow cultivator, both you and I are at the Jidan late stage. If you just listen to me, then forming our Yuan Ying will be just around the corner." The red glow in Wang Lin's eye faded. He stared at Chu Siping and darkly said, "My patience has a limit. I'll give you 3 sentences to explain it to me."